Hello, everyone, and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's live discussion on Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 3, joined by the usual but always special guests. First joining me, my sister Alyssa. Thanks so much for joining.
Hi, Mark. It's good to be here to talk about Strange New Worlds with you.
And also Darrin, talking Star Trek once again.
Yes. Oh, no. So excited to jump in. Yeah, as going through the season, all I was looking forward to is I get to do another chat with Mark and Alyssa at the end of season. This will be awesome. So, yeah, I'm really excited to dive into this.
Awesome. So we're gonna start by giving our thoughts on season 3 as a whole, but then we're gonna do this format we usually don't do for our end of season discussions, but I've done it before, and we've done it before in other things like Marvel movies, time travel. So I think Star Trek episodes once, where we're each gonna take turns. We each have our own personal list of our top 10 episodes of the season, and we're each gonna take turns ranking it, starting with our lowest one on the list, and we'll rank every episode of the season in order. So yeah, I'll start with my overall thoughts of the season, which I'm guessing is not too different from your guys' thoughts on this season, and that is this is a downgrade. I wouldn't say that this is a terrible season, but I would say that it's definitely the worst of Strange New Worlds, and that Strange New Worlds overall is going in the wrong direction. It's going downward. Like season 1 was the best, and then season 2 was slightly less, and then season 3 definitely less. kind of a jump to less. And there were a lot of decent episodes, but there was 3 out of 10 terrible episodes, and that's a bad ratio to have. And there weren't any like amazing episodes like there were in season 1 and 2. So most of the ones that weren't terrible were just, oh yeah, that's pretty good. It would, and there was one I thought there's my favorite, but it's still, I wouldn't put my favorite up with some of the best of the show, like Quality of Mercy and whatever. And I think that the showrunners are just getting too caught up in these gimmicks and like, oh, let's do these silly gimmicks that they started in season 2 and carried on here, instead of, why don't you just tell good stories like you were doing in season 1? Why don't you just have great character stories like you were doing in season 1? Don't get caught up on trying to get eyeballs by doing these silly gimmicks. It's killing this show. So I hope that season 4 doesn't even go further down. I really hope they turn it around, but I kind of doubt it since they wrote it before they even saw the reception of season 3. It's a problem. But anyway, Alyssa, we'll go to you next. What do you think of this season?
Yeah, you're right. It's a pretty similar opinion. There wasn't anything great in this season, so it was my idea to do the ranking format just to like mix things up. I thought it'd be fun, but honestly, like my number one choice is like pretty good, and then so if for some reason my number one choice doesn't make it to our collective number one, then it's going to be a mediocre episode. And honestly, like the top 5 is just going to be a lot of mediocrity. Like I just think at best this season had a lot of mediocrity and a couple episodes that were pretty good, like that I gave a 9 out of 10 to ratings wise. But yeah, like you said, 3 absolutely horrible episodes. And yeah, I think season 4 might have even, I think it wrapped filming even before season 3 had finished.
Really, I thought they were still filming it. Did they?
I heard they're starting to film season 5 by the end of this year.
Oh, really? I know they were working on the scripts for season 5. I didn't know if they were.
Okay, and maybe it's early next year that they're going to start filming 5. But I remember hearing it. It was like, oh, it's sooner than I thought. So I think they're in post production of season 4 right now. So it's done. Like they can't take any feedback from the fans, and I think there are a lot of people who have similar opinions to us, that they're just going too hardcore on the gimmicks, too much on the silly episodes, and too much comedy. There's nothing wrong with a little comedy, in Star Trek here and there. Even if it doesn't land, it's still just like one episode. Like back in the day, it would be maybe like 2 episodes out of 24 or something like that. Whereas like now it seems like almost half the episodes they're going for some form of comedy. And then they're just going for all these gimmicks. And yeah, why don't we just go back to what worked to just tell good stories? And I also noted several examples of what I thought was kind of lazy writing. And we'll get into those as we get into some of the episodes where I just felt like the writers couldn't be bothered. So they're just like, oh, we'll just do this thing. And there's too much of that. Like, I don't know. It just didn't feel like that there was a lot of care taken for this season. There was just a lot of gimmicks over quality. And I don't feel like that there, I don't know, there was a lot of love and care in this. And that's probably unfair of me to say because I'm not one of the writers. I'm not in the writer room. And maybe they really were putting a lot of care in the gimmicks that they did. But it just comes across to me just like there's a lot of like, I don't care about this, so we're just going to do this lazy thing in the writing and just like, I don't know, they're more concerned about like getting a good laugh and those sorts of things. And yeah, and it's not a terrible season. There are some positives that I can glean from it. But I would say that this is the most disappointing season of Strange New Worlds and the most disappointing season of the year. And there's no way that, so just spoiler alert, when I do my end of the year like awards and I do award for the most disappointing show, it's going to be Strange New Worlds because there isn't any other show coming out in 2025 that I have as high of expectations as I have for Strange New Worlds. So this is just, it's locked as the most disappointing show of the year. Like I was hoping it would be at least as good as season 2, but you're right, Mark. It's just going in the complete wrong direction, and I don't know if it's going to turn around. So I guess we'll see. But yeah, disappointing.
Well,
Darrin,
so,
go ahead, Mark.
yeah, one thing I thought about as you were talking was, I wonder if the script writing was rushed because of the writer's strike, and that's why they didn't really put as much care into it because they had to rush to beat some deadline. And if that's the case, maybe season 4 might be better.
That's true. I mean, they could still do too much of the gimmicks in season 4. But we already know the puppets are coming, so.
Oh no! That's not a good sign. And yeah, that's actually where I was going to jump in was the fact that this is coming off the writers and the actors strike, and there might have been time crunches, or they might be reduced number of writers, or I mean, there could have been any number of things that would have contributed to it. I think the problem is to me kind of twofold. One, at some point they came up with their big storyline, big arcing story with Battelle. And man, they thought they were cooking with gas. They really thought that they had something that they could really work and go out, and that had a huge effect on like nearly half of the episodes. I think it is like basically 4 episodes that kind of Battelle's story arc really works itself out in. And other than that, I mean, look, I wrote a whole goofy pitch meeting when I was starting my notes for this because I felt like I could see the pitch meeting for this, like, well, we're going to mix this up. And it's like, oh, we're going to do fetch quests. And, I mean, all the kind of like brilliant ideas people came in. And basically at the end, it's like, yeah, we're going to do a thing like off of Inner Light. And they're like, pull off of old episodes and sci-fi tropes. There's the rest of the season. Because that's what this feels like. It feels like all old rehashed, half this episodes at least are old hash Star Trek episodes and sci-fi tropes. And then you have the Battelle arc, and then you just get, like one other goof. Then they're like, and hijinks. And we've got the season. So yeah, my hope is that they were able to take the time and reposition and do season 4. The fact that the ad we have for it are puppets is not an encouraging one on my end. Because it's just no. I I really enjoyed Strange New Worlds because it felt like a return to form, and we get some nice adventures and maybe a little overarching story that to tie kind of things together, but really, really do some great explorations. And, look, I'm just upset that it took 3 seasons for us to finally get an Ortega's episode.
Yeah.
Because I think they've really been, I think there's a lot of potential with the characters that they could have explored, but ultimately, and I'll just wrap it up this way because I've mentioned this multiple times before, is the biggest anchor dragging this show down is the same thing that was dragging Discovery down. And that is, why put it in a prequel area where you now have to dance around the whole canon stuff? I really think both of those shows, this one in particular, would have been able to do far more if they just made it current with the rest of whatever the Star Trek universe is now. What is that? Picard era, the Legacy era, and just build it all off of that. And then you wouldn't have to worry about tying these things and going, oh, well, these people can't be together because later on they're not together, and these people need to be over here. And oh, look, these people friendship will start it out right here. And, I mean, it really just hampers, I think, their ability to do stories. So yeah, very disappointing season.
Yeah. I will disagree with you in one area, and that is, like, when I first heard of the concept of the show, even though it is a prequel, and I generally am against them doing prequels, I liked it because I thought it was going to be like 10 years before Kirk, and in my mind, this would just be focusing on Pike, and I didn't even think of, Uhura being there. I'm thinking like Spock being the only one from the original series, and we're focusing on Pike, we're focusing on Una, and we're focusing on a whole host of new characters, which at the time I didn't know would turn into Luann and Ortegas and all that stuff. And if they had gone in that direction, I think you could have made a prequel really work.
Mm-hmm.
But they're just steadily getting more and more into this is like Akiva Goldsman's year 1 show that he wants to do. Like, I'm worried that season 4 is just going to turn into the Star Trek year 1 show, which is like the early years of Kirk. And like, we're steadily getting into that. And I love Paul Wesley as Kirk. I love Martin Quinn as Scotty. And I think those characters can exist there. But they're just getting closer and closer to, like, this is just the early days of Kirk. Whereas that's not the show that I signed up for initially, and that's not the show it should have been. Like, I think it should have been, this is the Pike show, and it was in season 1, and we're steadily getting closer and closer to this is Star Trek year 1, and farther away from the Pike show, which is what it was supposed to be.
Right. Yeah, I think that's the problem. I think the temptation to, oh, we could show Scotty, oh, we could do this, it's like we're just waiting for McCoy now at this point, and yeah, I would rather not think about that stuff and just let them do some great adventures I've never heard of.
Yeah.
McCoy and Sulu, they're coming.
If they did not put Chekhov in there because
yeah, he wasn't there till second season of TOS anyway. So no Chekhov.
Yeah, but I agree. Like, I was looking forward to a Pike show. I always wanted a Pike show ever since I was a teenager. And I was like, oh, we finally got one. But now let's focus on these legacy. Like, we don't need the legacy characters. And then everyone, all the memes and stuff online making fun of the fact, why is Kirk always hanging out on the Enterprise? Like, I get it, his brother's there, but some of his appearances seem really contrived. I'll just say, I think I heard someone say, like, why is there only 2 ships in Starfleet?
Yeah, that's what I mean, it's interesting because before there was only 2 ships in Starfleet, and it was the Enterprise and the Cayuga. But then once they got Patel on the Enterprise, then now it's like the Enterprise and the Farragut are the only 2 ships in Starfleet. Because the first season and a half, it was like anytime another ship came by, oh, it's the Cayuga, so there's Patel. But now it's like it's always the Farragut. And I mean, this is going to sound contradictory because we're going to talk later about an episode that really focuses on the TOS crew, and I loved it. So I mean, I don't hate that just in general. I just don't want them to go too far into that. Like, I still want to focus on number one and Pike and Ortegas. Like, and I want that to be the focus. I do enjoy, because I enjoy the actors who are playing the legacy characters. I am one who is very anti the Abrams films, so I like these actors better as a prequel to those characters than the ones in the Abrams films. Christopher Pike, not Christopher, or what's his name? Chris Pine. Chris Pine. Yeah.
Just one letter off.
It is only one letter off from Pike. Yeah. What the hell is that guy's name? Chris Pine. He's not Kirk, he's Chris Pine. Like, if you see every movie Chris Pine is in, he plays the same character. And so, like, I do appreciate that. But as I've said before, I don't want a show of that. I would take a movie of that, and I would also like to wait for that movie to come out to really dive into that. Right now, we're still on Strange New Worlds. This is not Star Trek Year One. So I do like it, and I will give praise to that later. But at the same time, I don't want to get too far into that.
Yeah, I also wanted to agree with something Darren said earlier about how this Star Trek franchise, I want it to be set. Any new Star Trek shows to be set in like present time, and that could be. And honestly, I think present time and now is 32nd century is what Discovery established, and now was the Starfleet Academy is going to take place in that too. But Picard timeline would be good too, 25th century. But and I'm okay with Strange New Worlds though being set there because it was kind of established in Discovery, and these are Pike, whatever. It was great. He's an established character, and Anson Mount was great as that. So I don't mind them finishing off this show, but that's why I'm so against a year one prospect, because I think I don't want another prequel, and especially since it'll all be a direct prequel to the original series with the original series characters. I want something more original than that. Yeah, and I'd rather jump back into a future timeline.
Yeah. I think Starfleet Academy is in the 32nd century.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what it was saying. Yeah. I wouldn't mind something in what they call the Lost era, which is like the Enterprise B era.
Yeah.
Like
That'd
in
be
between,
okay.
because there's like 80 years in there they've never explored. Like I could be okay with that, and I think you could do that without. You could do it if you wanted to, like do right smack in the middle between TOS and TNG, and you could do it without being too prequel-y. Of course, they were probably couldn't help themselves by going, "Oh, look, it's like a young Picard."
We must save baby Picard.
They probably couldn't help themselves. But
I mean, honestly, it would be a better bridge for the technology that they like to use. You know, the visual effects and stuff. I think that tech would work better as a bridge between old Trek and new and next generation era. So that would be smart. But yeah, no, and you could use an Enterprise.
Well, it's like Section 31 had Rachel Garrett in it. Like they couldn't help it. Like this is young Rachel Garrett.
I mean, I wouldn't even mind a young Rachel Garrett if she was used well. Like that.
Yes. No. That
was
would be
terrible. Because Rachel Garrett appeared in one episode.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't mind like a character that has appeared in one episode, like they do the dude from the Enterprise B, who I guess is like big. There's all kinds of what's his name? The guy from Ferris Bueller's Day Off, like Captain Harriman.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And you could bring William Sadler back as evil Section 31 guy because he'd be older. It would work in the timeline, you know.
Let's reform Section 31. Yeah, after the craft they did with that in the movie. But JK99 in the chat is saying I would love Enterprise J where they fight the sphere builders, and that sort of piggybacks on what I was saying. Is that not only is there the Lost era, now there's this whole era between the 25th and 32nd century that they could play with. That's missing. And
there's also another Lost era that there's talk of doing a show in that era, which is in between Enterprise and TOS, and there's talk of the President Archer show.
Oh yes, that would be great. I would be so on board with the President Archer show, but I don't think they're gonna do it. But they should. But there's that movie coming out that's supposed to be a prequel even to Enterprise. I'm like, why are we doing another prequel?
Yeah, that's
And not to get too off topic, but that's why I'm really worried about the Skydance merger, because it seems like all the interviews I've seen from them, it seems like they're talking about merging the movies and shows, and they were helped make the Kelvinverse movies, and it seems like that the danger here is they'll make all the shows and everything in the Kelvin universe. And if that happens, I might just quit watching Star Trek.
Me too.
Honestly, yeah.
Well, just wait until they buy Warner Brothers Discovery and then Batman shows up.
Yeah, and that's happening, isn't it? That's actually happening.
Well, they're talking, but
yeah,
it's happening, but yeah.
I'm sure you also watch Trek culture, and they always talk about trying to do a Star Trek and Doctor Who crossover, and it's like, I don't watch Doctor Who, so I don't want that to happen.
Yeah. Well, apparently Pelia said something about a time traveling doctor in the latest episode, and they were like, "Oh,
yeah, he totally makes a Doctor Who." And
that's just a hint and a nod. That's fine.
Yeah,
but don't do a full crossover.
Yeah. All right.
I just wanted to address Google user in the chat earlier. It says, I'm wanting to get into Strange New Worlds, but clips just aren't pulling me in. Well, season 1 is really good.
Yeah.
So definitely watch that. And season 2 is fairly good, and I can't really promise anything beyond that. But anyway.
And then just take the top 5 or top 4 of what we get through tonight, and then that'll be all your season 3 you need to see.
Yeah. All right. So let's go ahead and jump into the episodes then. My random generator keeps going away. Hold on. All right. So, the stupid advertisement. All right. So 1 is going to be Alyssa, 2 Darrin, 3 is me, alphabetical order. And I don't know if you can see this, but it's a 2. So that is Darrin.
Yay! I get to anchor this. That makes me very happy, actually. Okay, so a little personal backstory. At my house, we have a rating system. We have a simple rating system for shows. It's just 1 to 5. Now, 3 is a show that we've actually watched all the way through. So that is like a basic if it's bearable. And then it's like either good or great. We want to simplify. And that's because we have no problem stopping things when they suck. And in fact, rating 1 is exactly that. We stopped the episode, shelved it, never finished it. That's where this one rates. My number 10, I got through about 15 minutes of it, stopped it, have absolutely no desire to watch anymore. And from everything that I've heard, there really is no point to watch it. And that is, of course, 4.5 Vulcans, which is just awful. I mean, look, when it started, I was like, oh no, it's a shore leave episode. And then they're like, we have to do an emergency thing. And I'm like, oh no, we have to disguise ourselves as an alien and hijinks happen episode. And then I'm like, oh no, they just skipped the whole mission. So it's just going to be hijinks. The jokes were horrible. The setup was bad. Everything on it was illogical. They're Vulcans, which automatically make them not wild and crazy, but they've already learned the mental thing, so they're calm, and they're racist assholes on top of it. Sorry if I just demonetized you. Honestly, the whole setup, the whole Anson Mount, whom I love, I don't know what he was doing. I think he did base it off of, from what I heard, David Lynch's FBI character in Twin Peaks, if you want to make a serious drawback. I don't remember that episode. I don't care. It was awful. Everyone was, it hurt. It physically hurt. I tried watching this 4 times. I don't know if I got past the opening credits. I might have just skipped that and happened, and I think he changes that, but I didn't watch it, and I won't, because I will never throw this episode on again. It's that bad.
So I am quite envious of you, Darren. Just similar in the lines of Picard season 2. I forced myself to watch it, mainly because I knew I had to go on. I knew I had to go on and do a review about it, so I was like, I need to watch the whole thing. And now, yeah, you are correct. You are not missing anything. It gets worse, if anything. Like so they have this one concept they're bringing in where they're like, oh, we're gonna bring in this Vulcan, and it ends up being, what's it say, Patton Oswalt? Yeah, ends up being him, and they're like, oh, we're gonna bring in this Vulcan. He's a Katra master, and he knows how to do Katras, and he can reform this, fix the 4 Vulcans or let them get in touch with the human side. I'm like, oh, that sounds like an interesting concept. That might be cool to see. We can get more into the Katras and maybe do some good character story. It all happened off screen. The whole thing, they just skipped right over it so they could do more stupid jokes, more dumb, like Pike having dinner with Patel and the Admiral that she was trying to impress, and he just being a total asshole to her and like telling her no the whole time, and like La'an turns into a Romulan or some bullshit and tries to take over the ship or something like that. It's so bad. I will say that the post-credit scene I thought was mildly funny, but it doesn't at all make up for the crap that I had to sit through for an hour. So obviously this is my number 10. I'm pretty sure it will be Alyssa's too. Anyway.
Yep, it's all 3 of ours. Number 10, we're all in agreement. I have this rated as not only the worst episode of Strange New Worlds, but I'm at number 3 worst in modern Trek. And I thought about even saying it's worse than 2 of 1, which is the Picard season 2 episode. But also, I'm kind of using 2 of 1 to represent the entirety of season 2 of Picard. So I'm going to keep that there as the second worst. And this is, to me, the 3rd worst of the entire modern Trek, and easily by far the worst episode in Strange New Worlds. Yeah, I didn't even like the post-credit scene. I thought it just went on for too long, like just doing the same joke over and over. Like I just thought I didn't like anything about this episode. The only thing that I got any enjoyment out of was a couple of Pelia's lines, and then I liked Kirk and Scotty's interactions, even though it's like, what the fuck is Kirk doing there? This is like the worst as far as excuse for why Kirk is there. Like they're like, oh, I'm coming to see my brother. Oh, he's already on shore leave. Well, I'll just hang out anyway. Like, how would you not know that your brother was on shore leave? I mean, if you were coming to see him, wouldn't you have arranged it? I don't know. It was, yeah. But like, I don't know. I could just go on and on. But I have to talk about this. I have to talk about like even the premise for how we even get to the 4.5 Vulcans thing. Like, we really, really want these characters to turn into Vulcans. Like, not even just, just disguised as Vulcans, but we want them to be Vulcans. And all the leaps in logic, all the hoops you have to jump through to get there. And I will say this. I know, Mark, that you also hated the Subspace Rhapsody episode, but you have to admit that at least in that episode, there was just one simple premise. You can think it's stupid or whatever, but like it was just a probability field, and you can say, well, that's unscientific or whatever, but at least it's just one thing that you have to buy into. Whereas there's like 5 different things. Like the Enterprise, of course, is the closest ship, which is to be fair, is like a common thing in Star Trek. Oh, we're the only ship that could get there in time. My question is, why did the Vulcans call the Enterprise if you have to be Vulcan to go on that planet? Did they know that they have this thing that could maybe turn them into Vulcans? Like, I don't know. But oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, and there's no other Vulcans on the ship.
Yeah, well, I mean, that I don't.
I guess it's really Starfleet. It's mostly humans. I can buy that, but
I'm
Yeah.
not too. Yeah, I'm
Then it'd
not
be a
too
Lower Decks episode.
Yeah, but then it's like, and then and so there's this planet that is pre-warp, but the Vulcans are in contact with them because here's the kicker: they contacted them before they joined the Federation, so they're not breaking the Prime Directive. But they set up this nuclear plant down there and then pieced out, didn't leave anyone there to oversee it. Also, my wondering is who knew that this was exploding and was able to contact the Enterprise? Like, why was there not anyone there overseeing this? And and then, even though they're pre-warp, they have this convenient technology where they could scan you, so you couldn't just disguise yourself as Vulcans. You have to be Vulcans because they can look into your innards with this scanner that they're just going to randomly do to anyone that walks by. Like, why would they even use that scanner? And then if they did, why couldn't you just say, yeah, you know that Vulcans are a thing, so yes, there's other species too. This is the humans. I mean, like, if they already know aliens exist, then why is it a stretch to also say, yeah, there's these other aliens too? So there's all of that. And like by the time we get to, oh, this is the reason why these guys got to be Vulcans, I'm like, I'm lost. Like, I'm gone. Like, I don't buy any of that. Like, it just, none of that makes any sense. And we haven't even started yet. And that's how this episode begins. And then they make some jokes about Spock being half Vulcan, which I think are dumb because they just literally turned Vulcan 5 minutes ago. Like, they have no standing to make those jokes. And that's supposed to be funny. Am I supposed to be laughing at this? So, like, this is I think Mark, you've used this term too. This is a term that I like to use, which is actively unfunny. So there's unfunny where I just like don't think it's funny and don't laugh. Actively unfunny is when the attempt at humor actively irritates me. Like when they're trying to be funny, I'm just like, and that's what this whole episode was. And I think, Darrin, you might have mentioned Anson Mount before. I think this is easily his worst performance. I don't know I don't get the Twin Peaks reference. I've never watched that show.
I had to look it up, man.
Yeah.
Seriously.
I heard somebody else say that it reminds them of Dan Aykroyd in the Coneheads, where he was talking. I was like, oh, yeah, it kind of does. Like the way he say, "We are from the Earth." Like the way that he was like, "Why are you shouting?" And like, I mean, and I heard a lot of people like saying things like, "Why did the turning into Vulcan? Like, why did that serum redo their hairstyles?" Which, at its surface, I'm not worried about, but the hairstyle that Pike has, like this flat top thing, I've never seen a Vulcan have that before. So, like, why does he have this flat top hairstyle?
And on top of that, they were wearing those Vulcan clothes, even though they're still in the Starfleet. And why didn't they wear Starfleet uniforms anymore?
Yeah, and I mean, there's plenty of Vulcan captains who are good captains. Why would Pike becoming a captain turn him into Jellicoe, where he's like, doesn't make any sense.
I think it was meant to be funny because absolutely absurd. It was like 40-minute shifts or some bullshit like that.
That was the side effect of it. Is it creates Vulcan clothes and gives you rocking theme music for your slow-mo walk through the hallway. And that, to me, that's the important thing. They bend over backwards to give you an excuse of why you have to do this for the mission, and you never see the mission.
Yes.
It's over like this. I'm like, why did you just send Spock down? And yeah, like you're right. Like, what, you couldn't put ears and they wouldn't just trust that you're Vulcans?
Yeah, I mean, even if they could have this convenient technology that a pre-warp society happens to have where you can scan your innards and see what species, are they just scanning everybody who goes down? Like, oh, you're an alien I've never heard of before. Like, what?
Well, and Jay came in 99 has a good point too, that Spock is half human, so his insides would look different than a normal Vulcan, and they're not concerned about that.
No, it's just a ridiculous excuse to like have the premise of people turning into Vulcans. And I do I have to say this. I have to say, and some people out there may not like this, but I think Mark, you would appreciate this. So I think that at the end of this episode, Spock is a murderer because they all said that they prefer to be Vulcans. And Spock killed their Vulcan self by returning as a human.
They were too slow.
Yes.
Everybody.
Yes. Two big reference. Yeah, so we have to have this huge debate now between the fans. Is Spock a murderer? Does Spock murder?
They all said they wanted to stay Vulcan, and he forced them to go back to human, like against their will. So
yeah, they should have had the Pike Vulcan going around being, I want to live. Anyway.
There were a way. I didn't think there was a way to make this episode worse until we started talking about this. It could have actually gone down another level.
But yeah, it's like Vulcans don't behave this way. Like, they were being all totally assholes, and you're right, Anson Mount's acting was horrific. I don't know what the fuck he was doing with his voice. And there was like, and Nurse Chapel is like unfriending everyone. Like, that's not how Vulcans behave. Like, what? This is just, they're just doing it for the sake of, this whole episode is like nonsensical for the sake of comedy. Like, they're sacrificing everything for the sake of comedy, and it's not funny. Anyway, all right. I think we destroyed this episode enough. Let's go ahead and move over. So I'm next. I feel like I might have a different number 9 than you two, but I could be wrong. My number 9 is, what is Starfleet? I actually starting to hate this episode more and more, like, since I've seen it. So, like, my rating of it has gone down. It actively angers me. It is, and the more I think about it, the more I don't think there's anything good about it. I was even considering putting this as my number 10, but then I was like, thought of 4.5 Vulcans again. I'm like, nah. But I would say that it is the second worst episode of the show, behind 4.5 Vulcans, because first of all, it uses a trope of, this is a documentary thing, and there's the reporters on board, and they're being assholes and in your face, which just in general, I'm sick of that trope. I hate that trope whenever it's done, like Stargate SG-1, Battlestar Galactica, all these shows have done it, or Babylon 5 is done. Like, it's just done all the time, and I've had enough of it. But it's even worse being in Star Trek, because it makes no sense in the world of Star Trek. I think, Alyssa, you pointed this out in your review. There should be no corporate media that's trying to twist the story or whatever, and a moneyless society, in this post-scarcity society, there shouldn't be idiots thinking that, Starfleet, you're just ruthless and you want to colonize people and destroy it. Like, people in Federation should know better than that. Like, that was so stupid. And they tried to excuse it by saying, he's just upset because his sister almost got killed or whatever. No, sorry, that doesn't work. That's total bullshit. Like, I don't mind sometimes when some shows like go against the Roddenberry box or whatever, but this is too extreme. This is too much. To me, it hits to the core of what Star Trek is. And it also is like they do it so they could do like an Office, the show The Office kind of style, like the documentary. Get that camera out of my face. And it's just an excuse to do poor camera work and trying to make it like a found footage. And there's a story in there somewhere, but it doesn't work. It's not developed because they focus too much on this documentary bullshit. And whenever there's any key story details, they're like, that's classified. And so I can't even follow the story. But my biggest point of hatred with this episode is the fact that this is the last thing we need right now in their cultural climate. Something that demonizes the media, something that portrays the media and journalists as people with their own agenda that will just go in and twist the truth to be whatever they want it to be, when our free speech, our media is violently under attack right now. This is the last thing we need. And to be fair to the writers, I'm sure this was written before that was as big of an issue as it is now. But still, it's like this is Star Trek's usually supposed to make good commentary on and good lessons, and maybe that was not their intention to demonize the media, but that is effectively what they're doing, and it's just absolutely not what we need. So I hate this episode. I'm almost giving it a 1 as well. But anyway, Alyssa, your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, I had this as my number 8, but my number 9 and number 8 were pretty neck and neck, so it could have gone either way. And we'll talk about what my number 9 was next. It's just going to be my turn. But they were kind of very close, like very neck and neck. I also hated this episode for a lot of the same reasons you said. I just don't buy that they would have this like guy doing this hard-hitting documentary and this so-called utopian money-free society that just doesn't fit, doesn't make any sense. It's just like this thing, oh, it'd be cool if we do a documentary episode. See, like another one of those gimmicky things. Like, oh, we did zombies and we did a musical and let's do a documentary episode. Like that, it's just stop doing that. Just stop it. Just stop. And it just doesn't work. It doesn't fit. And I've watched a few reviews where the people also the reviewer also hated it, but was like, well, I like the concept, I just didn't like the execution. And I defy that. I think the concept itself was flawed. Like you shouldn't have even done that to begin with. And then on top of that, it's a bad documentary. Like it's like, and apparently, didn't they lead us to believe that Starfleet like gave him permission, like they commissioned him to go on there and do this documentary about them? Like, why would they pick a bad documentarian? Because it's an objectively bad documentary. It's just yeah, the whole thing is terrible. Now, as far as a story, I think was it Jay came in the chat, mentioned something about the space butterfly. That story itself wasn't bad. Sure, maybe they could have made that into something good without the documentary stuff. Like if they had just, and it is kind of similar. Reminds me of other episodes that they've done before, like Tin Man, and there's other episodes that are similar. But it still would have been a good Star Trek episode if you take out all the documentary bullshit and explain to me why in the fuck Starfleet was taking a side in a war and taking a side with these awful people who wanted to to like torture a sentient being. Like, and every time they ask why, it's like classified. And the reason they did that is so that Beto could go, ooh, see, look, Starfleet's evil. This is good fodder for my documentary, which is like, yeah, it looks like they are evil, and it's completely against their character. Like they don't take a side in a war. Like that's exactly what Starfleet doesn't do. That's like what the Empire does in the Mirror universe. Like Starfleet would not do that. And we assume that there's some reason for it. And if we had an episode that was about that explained what the reason was that Starfleet was doing this, then yeah, I could buy it. And yeah, maybe I would have liked the space butterfly thing if it was just like an episode that was just that. I don't think it would have been a great episode. I would have probably said, oh, this is similar to these other episodes that he did, but it's not bad. It's fine. Like, it's a good episode. Like, I think I could have gotten behind it if they just did that episode, but instead they're trying to use that as the excuse to do this horrible documentary episode, and the camera's going up people's noses and just flying all over. Just like, yeah. So I also hated this episode. Darren?
Yeah, this was, this was my number 7, but I think only because I was able to get through the whole episode. But you're right. The thing is it's another, documentary starts out negative, but then we see the truth and which, if you think about it, you're like, okay, but we're watching it as a documentary. But before you finish the documentary, you know the truth, so it would actually look entirely different. But okay, I get it's a storytelling technique. And look, I thought that they had they had a chance to use some interesting camera angles. Some worked and were interesting, some were dumb. And, they had cool little visual jumps of showing the ships and its armament and all of those things like that, which, okay, kind of cool just to see something different. But we've known this character since the beginning of the season. So this sudden negative view like came out of nowhere, and he's seen them do all these things and sacrifice and do all this stuff that we see in this episode. And he doesn't have, so it's like, okay, you had him around to place him, but then you just gave him a total 180 character thing so you could do this episode, which, yeah, ultimately, this contributes nothing. The B storyline is a standard Star Trek fare that we don't know enough to actually have the real moral decision-making outside of like, oh, we've agreed not to do this, but it's bad, so we should actually do the right thing, is about as far as it goes, because yeah, everything's classified, so you can't talk about anything. But it just, again, it doesn't give anything to Star Trek. It doesn't reveal anything for us. It doesn't tell anything that we don't already know. It really is a rehash. And again, if you're doing 24 episodes and you got to do that one episode that combines like flashbacks of previous stuff because the guy's in a coma and you've already used all of your effects budget, something like this would make sense. You're 1 in 10 to make a documentary that reveals nothing about your characters or story, or I guess there's the slight Ortega's thing, but again, it doesn't even really deal with that. It's just, yeah. Again, slightly higher on my list, but really the bottom half of this is all pretty much just a jumbled mess for me. That's it.
All right, Alyssa, you're next for number 8.
Okay, this was number 9 on my list, but it was close. And I think I put this one a little bit below What is Starfleet because it brought back a trope that I've hated for years, that I thought has been overused for decades, and then they do nothing new with it. They just keep doing the same thing that drove me crazy back in Next Generation and Deep Space Nine and Voyager. Of course, I'm talking about A Space Adventure Hour, which brings back the holodeck in a time where holodecks haven't been invented yet. And I don't mind them doing that and saying, oh, this is an experimental thing that we're trying, if they were to bring something new to it. And if they were to like shed some new light on the history of the holodeck that we didn't know before. And we're like, oh, isn't that interesting? But no, they just did the same damn things that they've done 1,000 times in all the previous Star Trek shows where the holodeck safety stopped working. And like, so at the end of this episode, by the way, Luann was like, oh, I recommend against the holodeck because one of the power source and 2 of the holodeck safeties. So I guess I know, Mark, you have your opinion about the power source, but let's just say within canon that they supposedly fixed the power source issue, but they never solved the holodeck safety issue, and they still put it on every like in 80 years or whatever. Like they never fixed that, and they still put it on every ship. And I've said it many times before, many times, and I'll say it one more time here. There should be no such thing as holodeck safeties because it should just be embedded into the holodeck itself that people just can't get hurt. Like, and I don't want to hear any bullshit about like, oh, Worf doing his calisthenics and like you have to have real danger in it. No, bullshit, because you're on a starship and you're already in danger all the time. So why would you put your crew in danger on their leisure time? Like this is usually used for fun. Like they're supposed to do fun things and you can get killed on your starship on your leisure time. Not even going onto shore leave and anything. Just like it doesn't make sense that Starfleet would commission these things in that way. It's just used as a plot device to rack up the stakes a little bit, and it's been done so many times. And then they did the Moriarty thing again, where Luann asked the computer to come up with an opponent that could defeat her or whatever. And then that's where we get the fake Spock, and we never get. We were never told where the real Spock was during this crisis that could have used a science officer, since it was a very scientific problem that they were dealing with. And they probably could have used a science officer, but Spock was, off practicing his dance routine or meditating or whatever, because if they showed the real Spock on the bridge, then that would reveal their big twist. And I haven't even gotten into like the whole murder mystery thing. Like, I'm not totally against some of the characters. Like, I think Anson Mount actually does do good in this episode, but I think it's a little iffy to have the murder mystery be about writers, like basically a parody of Star Trek, or like Anson Mount's character was some version of Gene Roddenberry, or like to have the writers and actors from a Star Trek like show. That was an interesting choice and not a good one. And the whole space adventure hour thing at the beginning of the episode with Paul Wesley doing a straight up William Shatner impression. Like, I didn't understand why we needed that, other than for them to go, oh, look at this. Isn't this cool? Like, I mean, if you were going to do the murder mystery thing, I think it should have just been like a traditional murder mystery that has nothing to do with writers of Star Trek, of a fake Star Trek show. They just wanted to throw in this cool thing where it's like a bad parody of Star Trek. And I think I said this in my review, but I watched another review where it was one of the guys on Trek Culture who said that like it reminded him of a porno movie, and I was like, now I can't unsee that. Like, now I see that, and like it does, because yeah, it's like the fake Kirk with a couple of hot women, and it's like, oh my god, this would be the setup for a porno movie. But I don't know. It's just so many things are bad about it. I don't even think I've listed everything that I hate about this episode, but the crux of it is that like we've already seen the holodeck trope done a billion times, and the trapped in the holodeck thing, and they brought it back again for no reason. And so I hate this episode.
Yeah. I mean, it's okay. So in my family rating, this would be what we call a 2, which means I got through it, but I fast forwarded through most of the episode because there was nothing new to it. It's, hey, let's let the actors dress up and have fun episode. Another one. And yeah, there is no holodeck, but they want to do a holodeck, so it's experimental. And yes, it does everything every other holodeck episode does. It breaks and traps, and you have to find. There's nothing new in here. The fact that, yeah, they pull a Moriarty, that Spock wasn't there because that's why we didn't see him anywhere else. And you get a little bit of the outside of, I guess, Scotty learning that he has to ask for help when he needs it or some little thing. But outside of that, there was nothing that this story did. It didn't contribute anything. It pulled away. And honestly, that opening episode bit hurt. I mean, again, when you're fast forwarding through the opening bit because it's bad and confusing, you've already made a lot of mistakes. So no, I couldn't deal with this episode. I don't really like Star Trek hijinks. That's not what I'm coming to this show for. And again, when you have 10 episodes, I would like to see an actual space adventure hour, and not this. And please just stop just having the actors do fun other character interpretation. That's not what we're here for. Just tell a story with these characters. Please. Mark?
So, this is my number 8 as well, and I will say that it's the bottom. These 3 are my bottom 3, and the way my list works is the bottom 3 are absolutely terrible, and they're kind of all neck and neck, and then the next 6 are all different grades of mediocre that could kind of slot anywhere, and then there's my number 1, which is slightly better than the other 6. But anyway, so that's how the season breaks down for me. So I agree with everything you guys said, especially what Alyssa said about the holodeck. Like, when I review episodes, people who follow my reviews, every time I get to a holodeck episode, I don't like practically any of them. Like, any the trapped in the holiday cliche, like Ship in the Bottle is like the one example. Our Man Bashir is okay. That's slightly different. But most of them, I just hate that trope. I hate it so much. I agree with Alyssa 100%. Safety should not exist. It's just a poor excuse for the writers to. They mostly do an episode that takes place in Earth's past or our present, or and it's just an excuse to do that. Now, granted, that is better than what the original series did, which is, let's travel to a planet that's exactly like Earth, coincidentally. So at least it's better than that, but it's still, in order to create tension, they have to have the contrivance of the safeties malfunctioning, which is dumb. Now, to be fair, it's actually a little bit more acceptable here because this is in the beta testing or whatever, and they're just testing it out. But I just seen that cliche so many times. I don't need to see it again. And I didn't mind like the weird funk, eccentric characters, and the actors got to play different characters. Like, I didn't mind that, but the murder mystery itself, like, I couldn't really follow it, and I wasn't interested in it, and didn't really engage me, and I didn't really care. And when they revealed Spock was fake and he was the one behind it, I'm like, that doesn't really make any sense, and I wasn't really interested in it. I was like, and the whole thing with the original series, knockoff thing, I think that was a bad choice. It feels to me like they were just trying to ride off the coattails of Black Mirror, and because they did this original series goof, and they're like, oh, let's do it. I don't think Star Trek should do a direct goof on the original series like that. Like, Lower Decks handled Star Trek satire perfectly. Especially the way they did it, felt very mean-spirited to me. And maybe I'm alone in this, but it felt like it was insulting the original series. It didn't seem like a love letter the way that other parodies like Galaxy Quest do. And so, and also it was just thrown in there. It had nothing to do with anything. They just had an excuse to throw it in there. And when they had the end credits thing with the bloopers or whatever, I'm like, this is fucking stupid. This is so dumb. It kind of, it really pissed me off. And the thing with Scotty, too, is he should have been fired. Like, why didn't he go immediately to them and said, oh shit, this is how, instead he's like keeping it secret. Why is he keeping it secret? And he tells a horror, and I was like, okay, now he's telling a horror. She's going to immediately get a Pike. But she doesn't. I'm like, why don't you go? Well, and why the hell are they doing these dangerous missions in space while they're running this dangerous experiment with the holodeck?
Yeah, I think those power demands should have been worked out in beta before they got it on a starship.
Yeah, and not just on a starship, but took it on a dangerous mission at the same time they were testing it. Like, what sense does that make? But anyway, okay.
I mean, and that makes it worse than other holodeck episodes, because you always had that happen in holodeck episodes where there's this other outside danger that's putting pressure on the holodeck situation. But at least there, like, the holodeck is a thing that just exists and you always have it. And so when this other danger happens along, it's like, it makes sense. But here it's like they willfully decided to do an experiment in the holodeck while they were also doing this other potentially dangerous scientific experiment at the same time. And that makes no sense. That is not the time nor the place to experiment with the holodeck.
This episode, to me, underlines what I think a lot of this season feels like, is these don't feel like Star Trek writers. They feel like sci-fi writers that got pulled in to tell Star Trek stories, but they don't know Star Trek stories as much. I mean, there's a lot of writing stuff. I mean, just constantly throughout the season, some bad writing choices and just weird stuff. But yeah, this doesn't feel, like you said, it doesn't feel like a love letter to it or even a tongue-in-cheek look back. It feels mean in its badness.
I mean, and I absolutely agree with you. And not to circle back to an episode we've already trashed, but I did feel similarly about 4.5 Vulcans. Like, I feel like the people who wrote that just don't understand Vulcans.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of that. There are other episodes that do feel Star Trekian to me, which we'll talk about later, but there's quite a few that just seems like the writers maybe don't quite get Star Trek. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah.
They know enough to do the same holodeck.
Yeah.
I've seen this before.
Yeah. Yeah.
Speaking of, are we up to the number 7 now? Okay, so speaking of things that we've seen before, let's stick with Everything Sucks That's a Hijinks and just say Wedding Bells Blues was awful. Now, I did watch this whole episode because it was early in this season and I still had hope. But again, I don't really like hijinks episode. I immediately knew that this was Trelane. Now, to be honest, I love the actor. He's been in a lot of Taika Waititi films. He was in Hunt for the Wilder People, was with a very intense hatred for forms. I think he was also in Jumanji. He was the truck driver that drops them off and pick them up.
But his best role, role was in what was it called? What We Do in the Shadows.
Yes.
Where he played the werewolf. He's like, we're werewolves, not swearwolves.
I'm sorry. Our flag means death. That's where I know him from. But it was also like a Waititi thing. But anyway.
Yeah, so he's in a lot, and I do like the actor and what he brings. But, I mean, look, it's already going to hurt me that you're doing so we've got to have Spock and Battelle, or Spock and what's her name break up. I'm thinking Battelle because I'm stuck in that thing. Nurse Chapel. Thank you. And we got to bring in Roger here because remember, they had a relationship. We talk about it later on in the series when we run into him in the original series. So to me, there's so much of this. We've got to close this out and do this and make the uncomfortable stuff. Plus, we're going to set up some little stuff between Luan and Spock. Why? I don't know. Spock's like the one sexy guy around. Everybody's after him. But mainly, it's a hijinks episode. And especially later on, the fact that you do it's literally Trelane. You actually have the whole father speak. You have the glowing orb, and you have that later on in the original series with no reference back to this. It's like, just why make that choice? It's another episode where I get that you've got to split these up and make some emotional thing about it, but why add these elements that are just contradicting or just an unnecessary rehash of previous story IDs. So yeah, I mean, to me, this was, I think, number 8. I think I had 9 for Space Adventure Hour, and then the documentary at 7, but any of those could jump around, and I'm perfectly fine where this is at, because it just shows it's in the group of episodes that suck, and I won't ever watch it again.
So I think this is where we're going to find some disagreement.
Okay.
Should we go with you next, who slightly disagrees with him, or the person who?
Well, let's stick to the same order.
Like exact opposite. Yeah. Let's gradually get from hate to
So I had this at number 4, and as I said, like everything in between the bottom 3 and my top ones kind of could have went anywhere. They're all mediocre. I know it's kind of a guilty pleasure, but I like the fact that they introduced Trelane, and I like the fact that they definitively said he was a Q. I know some people were very much against that and be like, oh, why they have to mess with canon. I actually think it's cool. Oh, which leads me to a question. Sorry. One of my regular commenters wanted me to ask you, Darren, if you ever read the book Q Squared.
No, I have not.
Okay, but have you heard of it?
Oh, no, I've heard of it, but I've read a lot of Star Wars novels, but not a lot of Star Trek novels.
This one was my favorite novel in particular, and it has Trelane as a Q. But anyway, but it was different than this, though. It doesn't really fit into this in canon, but whatever. Sure. It doesn't have to. It's be canon. But no, I like this. Some of the hijinks, actually. Usually, I hate like the hijinks Spock episodes, but I think like they have a Vulcan one every season. I think the one this season was 4.5 Vulcans, not this one. But this one, I actually think kind of worked the way that he was being manipulated, and he had to team up with Roger Corby, who he was really jealous of at the start. And it sort of has a character story for him to sort of overcome his feelings of jealousy and his emotions or whatever, and come to terms with breaking up with Chapel. And so I think that worked. Was it a bit too like ridiculous and over the top? Absolutely. Like when I first saw it, I'm like, so this is fine, but let's not do an entire season of silly episodes. And they did do too many silly episodes. But yeah, I think that's all I gotta say.
No, I mean, and I will agree with that little emotional, but that's the one thing that to me actually raises it a little bit more versus some other ones is I think there was something actually being told within this. I just didn't like it.
Okay, fair enough.
All right, this was my number 2. I gave it 9 out of 10. This is my second favorite episode of the season. It was my favorite episode for a while. I didn't view it as a hijinks episode. I viewed it as a really strong Spock character story that had some silliness thrown into it. I'm one who absolutely hated the Spock and Chapel romance. I thought that never should have happened. And so to me, this was a really powerful way to close that out. Now, they did, as you said, like kind of tease the Spock and Luann thing, but at the time that I watched this episode, I thought they could easily just go the friendship way. I remember thinking, I hope that they're not going to say that this is a romance, because it isn't in this episode. Like, it very easily could have just been like they're developing a new bond that's a friendship, which would have made more sense to me, which I would have bought more. And I've heard a lot of people say that, well, the Luann and Spock romance is better than the Chapel and Spock romance, and I agree. But if they've already done the Chapel and Spock romance, so at this point they should, move on and not always have to have Spock always being in a romantic relationship all the time, like the hot Spock thing. But that actually has nothing to do with this episode. That's kind of continues in further episodes. In this episode, they just kind of introduce it, and at the time I was like, oh, they could be friends. But as far as like Spock and Chapel, it closed it off in an absolutely beautiful way, because Spock has to make this. He's finally coming to terms with the fact that he's not going to be with Chapel anymore, and that he actually goes out of his way, like fights hard to change this world in which he's getting everything he always wanted. And he's going out of his way to make that change. And this is part of his ongoing character development that I actually think that they're doing well in this episode. And I don't think they always do it well, is that we've seen this emotional Spock that people always complain about. Oh, he's too emotional. But the show has told us many times that, no, we're still heading toward the Leonard Nimoy, Vulcan, logical Spock. We're still going in that direction. They told us this, and those old scientists last year, where Boimler came back and was like, "Oh, Spock's smiling. Oh no, I changed the timeline." And Chapel's like, "No, that's just how he is." So that's the show telling us, "Oh no, we're still getting to the Leonard Nimoy logical Spock." And so this is another step in that journey. This is Spock like putting away that emotion that he had for Chapel, for more logic, but also for his friendship. And I will also just say in a broad, like, feminist perspective, I think to have a male character who makes the choice to, I mean, it seems like a low bar to clear, but to like not stalk the woman for his own emotional satisfaction, because he's the man, and that he's allowed to do that. He's allowed to take what he wants because he's a man. But instead, like, putting her needs first and not being a stalker, and instead doing the opposite and doing everything he can to make her happy. And I think even if it means that he has to give her up, I think that's really powerful. And I think we need to see more male role models on TV doing that, especially in these days and times where there's just a lot of, like, in a younger generation, they're listening to, all those bro podcasts, and the idea that men should be able to own women and take them whenever they want. That's becoming more and more prevalent, unfortunately. So to have a male role model like this on a TV show, like make that decision that I'm going to put her needs above mine because I want her to be happy and I care about her. And at the same time, helping Spock's journey into like kind of putting the emotional side and getting more into the logic. Now the land thing kind of throws that for a loop. I wish they didn't do that, but that's not in this episode. Just taking it as this episode, that was really powerful for me. So I loved it, and that's why it's a 9 out of 10 for me. I also love, to me, he's the guy from Our Flag Means Death. I love that show. So he's great in that show. And I loved him as Trelane. I loved how they were able to kind of get around canon by showing that all the other characters saw him as the Andorian or the Vulcan bartender and then the Andorian wedding planner, and they never saw Trelane. I did say that, like, when Q comes and scolds him, like, wouldn't Spock, once the the original series episode happens, wouldn't he be like, "Hey, this looks familiar," like, even if he didn't see Trelane as Trelane. But I don't care about that. I also loved that it was Q. So
yeah, the one thing I'll say about that is in the Square Gothos, Spock wasn't there when the parents came. Like, Kirk could have told. Yeah, he wasn't. It was just Kirk. So okay. I mean, Kirk could have told him about it later, but he wasn't there for it. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't remember that. It's been a while since I've seen that episode.
Yeah, okay. Same here. And look, I love that you got a lot more. And you're right. There was a good story there with him kind of overcoming stuff. I just was so kind of done with the relationship thing. I think that it didn't hit me quite as hard. But those are excellent points.
But that's why I liked it, because they were finishing that relationship. Like, they were putting an end to it. And I hated that relationship, and they were ending it. And that's what I like, giving it nice closure. The Luan thing, that's a whole other can of worms. But just as far as the Spock and Chapel thing, that's why I liked it. But
so Brandon in the chat says the only decent thing in it was the multi-armed bartender.
Whatever happened to that, by the way? Because
that's what I was gonna say. Because they were like, "Oh, we want you on our ship. Would you want to join our ship?" She's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Oh, so she's gonna be a regular character." We hadn't seen her for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I never came back.
And
Season 4.
Yeah, and she was the same alien species as this character from the animated series, and Lower Decks had a couple of them on too. The 3-armed, whatever they're called.
She's going to be the one who uses her arms to magically turn them into puppets. Like, she'll be in season 3.
The puppet master bartender. Man, what was in this drink?
All right, so I guess we're to me for number 6, which would be my number 7. Which again, I don't really hate this episode. We're getting into a lot of the mediocre stuff, but for me, it's Through the Lens of Time. This episode's fine. Like, I just feel like they could have done more with it. Like, I thought it could have been a really interesting concept. Like, they had all these weird, like, spatial time anomaly thingies, and the episode's called Through the Lens of Time. So I thought we were gonna get something like Timescape or something that had to do with, like, weird timey shit, and they would play with, like, do the classic Star Trek thing and play with the science and fuck with that. But no, it's just evil demons that want to kill everyone and that possess someone, take over someone's body and rip out their eyes. I'm like, what is this, Event Horizon? Like, talking about being derivative. And the whole thing with, like, oh, they existed in different space time or whatever, it was like irrelevant. Like, it was just there for show. It didn't actually factor into the story that much. And this is, they introduced, like, and they had Pella, who spelled it out for us, made it very clear, oh, there is evil in the universe, evil and ancient evil that wants to destroy everything. Fucking hell. Like, Star Trek has done it. Like, to be fair, Legacy Trek did this a little bit. Like, Deep Space Nine had the Apollo race, but Modern Trek has done this way too much. It's like the Picards, like the evil AI that wants to wipe out all sentient life in the galaxy, and Discovery had control that wants to like. We just had enough of this. We don't need it, and especially if you're going to say it's pure evil. Like, I think that goes against Star Trek, saying, especially the way she labeled it out. Oh, there is such a thing as a pure evil, and I guess it's the other episode when they explained that it was the evil that it was when the universe first formed, and it was the basis for all evil mythology. That's fucking stupid. The basis for evil mythology is people recognizing evil in other people. But anyway, so yeah, I think it's very un-Star Trek like, and it tried to be like this horror thing, and I did find it, somewhat engaging, which is why I totally didn't hate it. I think Gambles was an interesting character. I thought the actor did a good job in the character, but of course he ended up just being a red shirt. But I guess they say they turned him into a villain, and so all that was well and good. No, I think this was the episode where Uhura had to put the things on her head, and like, or was that a different episode? I don't know.
Wait, what things in her head?
Yeah, she like had to put these things in her head and had to like control something or what, I can't remember. But anyway, maybe it wasn't this episode. Maybe I'm thinking of another one. Anyway, okay.
They had the camera that watched vibes.
Was it the documentary episode? She had to like do, no, I don't think it was. She had to like do something where she had to like go this telepathic.
Oh, Brandon says a space butterfly episode.
Oh, the space butterfly. So it was a documentary.
documentary.
Yeah, it was. Okay, all right, yeah. So it wasn't this one. Okay, all right.
Should I go next or Darrin?
Yep. No, you're next. So listen.
Okay, I'm next. Yeah, I had this like in the middle too. I think this landed. Where did this land? My number 6. No, this is my number 7. We're at number 6 now.
Yeah.
This is my number 6. I think we're going in the order of mine episodes, except Wedding Bell Blues was thrown in there. Otherwise, we're going in the. This was my number 7. Yeah, this one was fine. I had a lot of issues with it. I actually liked the horror aspect of it. I thought that they did horror well. I thought the guy who played Ensign Gamble did a really great job. It was very creepy. Like when the scene where he's telling Mabanga about his daughter, and like he knows everything, and he's like, well, what if she didn't go off to this happy place? And then it's like, those were like, what if she, whatever it was he said, it was like this evil twisted thing, and I was just like, ugh, ugh. And I love that kind of shit, like the psychological horror. When that's done well, that's the kind of, not that I'm a fan of the horror genre in general, but that kind of thing is what I do like. So I thought that was done well. I thought it was well acted. But yes, I agree. The premise of like good versus evil, though I do think they get into it a little bit more in the sequel episode than this one, but that, that's not very Star Trek like. My issue was with the storyline on the planet. Like I just couldn't follow it. I just felt like they were just throwing these random disjointed things together, and I didn't really. There was no straight line for me. It was just like, oh, so now time is moving in this weird way, and now we're all in different rooms, and now at the end we're gonna do the Indiana Jones thing where where you have to have faith to walk on the bridge, and it just seemed like they were just throwing things at me, like random things that were disjointed, and they're just throwing them at the wall, and I was just like, it was hard for me to follow. I actually, the Gamble storyline and the horror part of it is what I liked more. The whole thing on the planet when they were in that escape room was basically what it was. I couldn't follow it, and I didn't really. I don't know. I didn't understand what they were trying to say about the race that had built that temple or the prison, as it turned out to be, and like I just. Yeah, it just seems so disjointed and all over the place, and that's kind of where the episode lost me. The horror stuff I was fine with. That I just like kind of threw me off.
Yeah, let's see. This I think was number 4, but again, this is just the Battelle arc that's number episode 3 of the 4 episode arc. And we don't really know that until sort of the end. So, I mean, I didn't mind we're on a planet and it's kind of an Indiana Jones archaeology mission. That feels kind of Star Trek-y and discovering stuff. Uh, of course, grabbing things and having them blow up in your face. Always a smart thing to do on your first away trip. And to be honest, I was kind of into the ideas like, wow, we've seen this character for a few episodes. And now we're going to take them out. So we get to meet our red shirts for a while before we kill them. Okay. Normally this would just be the guest star of that episode. So I did kind of like that. And yeah, the stuff up on the Enterprise between Mbenga and Gamble were cool. And I didn't mind, again, the adventure stuff. That was kind of okay, except I was noticing just a lot of weakness in writing, especially with Ortega's brother here, who's trying to do the documentary, and the fact that this camera can focuses on vibes, and that allows it to take quantum dimensional images and put them together in an overlap. There was a point where you're like, okay, you're just making some shit up now just to kind of like move things forward at this point. And definitely by the time they got to the Battelle Gamble John Wick fight upstairs, up in the Enterprise, it just came out of nowhere. And it really made no sense. And I don't think they had done we did, I think, in a previous episode, which we'll get to, I think it's Confori, where you get the kind of vision of these creatures. So they like dropped a little hint ahead of time. But none of that really made any sense now. So this seemed very out of nowhere. And I think with everything else, I think it just made the episode itself very disjointed. And I think I even made a comment, Mark, on your video, on the review, where, yeah, you get Pelia's whole like, no, I know what this is. It's evil before evil was ancient, whatever. And goes to this big emotional. And then it's like, do you want me to do that again for camera? I can do that in a different angle. And it's like, don't throw the joke in, man. Hold an emotional moment for it. It really just kind of undercut things. So this was definitely an episode that felt like a to be continued, but I didn't know why. It's like we've got definitely elements here, and so we're definitely going on, but I don't know why we are telling this story, because you're right. It doesn't feel like Star Trek to itself. And well, when we get to the episode, the next episode will it all sort of comes together in its lack of explanation.
So I would say that the ending where they had like the computer blank out was, to me, it wasn't to be continued. It was more of the end ? Like, like that's just how it came off to me.
Yeah, well, I guess the big it's evil. I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, well, I guess they're gonna come back again at some point.
Yeah.
Again, it just you're definitely leaving like open storyline.
But when you told me about the scene where he takes the thing and shoves it in his face, so like it reminded me of like Prometheus, when there was like this alien snake going around going, and the guy's like, "Oh, it's so cute! Look at this snake! Let me put my face right in front of it." It's like a horror trope. But
yeah.
Anyway. So, I believe, Alyssa, we're up to you next for our number 5.
Okay, our number 5 is my number 6, and guess what, Darren? You don't have to wait very long, because my number 6, our collective number 5, and my number 6 is the next episode in that sequence. It's New Life and New Civilizations, which I also kind of put it like in the same area of the first one, the one we just talked about, where it was just like, it was just okay. And I don't know. Like after the first one, I was like, okay, maybe when they do the sequel, we can get more really cool and interesting information about like who this ancient alien species are, and like we'll learn something really cool, and maybe they'll tie together some of these disjointed things that I didn't like. But no, they just do more disjointed things. Like this episode again is all over the place, and this ancient alien race, wasn't really interesting at all. They just turned out to be like superheroes or whatever. Like they're the saviors of the universe or something. And that's not interesting at all. And I still don't understand why, like how and why they complain all these different timey-wimey stuff. It's just because they're ancient aliens and they have timey-wimey technology. I don't know. But like, they're superheroes. And then Gamble at this point, in the first one he was creepy, and this one he's just a supervillain, and he's wearing this mask that reminds me of Data's mask in the episode Masks, where it just looks silly, and the whole thing is silly, and I don't like that the whole build up with the Gorn DNA in a Batel leads to this. Like this is so disappointing. Like I thought it was going to be something interesting. Like I thought it was going to be something that actually like related to the Gorn. That she's part Gorn and now she's going to have to live with that for the rest of her life or something like that. I thought it was going to be this interesting dilemma, and then somehow she was going to maybe have to actually die at the end, and it was going to be this like really interesting dilemma or something like that. But no, it's just the Gorn DNA combined with the Lyran DNA and something, and that makes her a superhero. And it just, she literally looked like Captain Marvel to me when she had like the galaxy eyes. Like it looked, I was like, this is Captain Marvel, and like then it was like good versus evil, and and this is very un-Star Trek like, and I don't know. And then all of a sudden, I'm watching The Inner Light. Like I was like, I know, Mark, you and your review, you really liked it, but I was too discombobulated the whole time, like watching it to really appreciate it. I was like, what? I guess I'm watching The Inner Light now. Like it just comes out of nowhere. And again, it's just this episode is like, let's do this thing now, let's do this thing now, let's do this thing and this thing and this thing. I did appreciate the emotional payoff that it leads to. I do think it's cool that I do like the fact that Batel created this life for Pike before she left him, which that's really interesting, and that leaves Pike with that. And I like the scene with him and Una at the end where she's like, do you want to talk? And he's like, not yet. And I think that's really good because that shows that he's still processing. And I think when you have an experience like that, you would still be processing it. And it's a lot. So I did like what it led to, but at the time that I'm actually watching it, I'm like, I was just blindsided and I just felt discombobulated, and I'm like, what the hell? Why am I watching The Inner Light now? Because it just felt like this episode and its predecessor, both of them were just throwing all these random disjointed things at me, and I couldn't follow it. So that was weird. And then they go back to the big battle between good and evil, and it's going to be hard for her to defeat this demon. Actually, it was super easy, barely an inconvenience. Like she just defeats him all of a sudden, like out of nowhere, and it's just like, I don't know. Pick what you're gonna do, man. Like if you're gonna do an Inner Light episode, I don't mind that, but like let's do an Inner Light episode like that. I don't know, just kind of throw it randomly and with all this good and evil stuff for 10 minutes. It was disjointed and discombobulated. That said, I did get some good emotional payoff. I thought we did get emotional payoff for the Batel storyline that we've been following all season, even if the whole Gorn DNA thing led to something kind of ridiculous, in my opinion. We still got a good emotional payoff, and it's a good story for Pike. That, like I said, that scene where he's like, "I'm not ready yet." I really enjoyed that. So it didn't totally suck, but there was just a lot that I don't know, just kind of all over the place.
Yeah. This is the one where I was like, man, they really think they're cooking with gas. They've got a freaking idea here. And look, I mean, I get this is, this is what they came with. They had to do something to end this relationship. And yeah, I'm not going to lie. That whole little bit was very emotional. It hit. I got tears in my eye. But yeah, the writer producers have also already said that they specifically took it from Inner Light. It's a specific thing. And that had an impact to it because it was its kind of own thing. It was the story of a civilization, and it had its own particular bit. I love that we got an emotional payoff to the whole Battelle Pike relationship, but it also kind of undercuts things in so much because it was this big, long, seriously, when you were describing everything they needed, it was Gorn DNA and Illyrian blood, and then they had to get a flower, and then it was vitamins X, Y, and Z, and that's how they made Mighty Mouse. Sorry, I'm very old. But it did. It felt exactly like that. It overall, while that emotional bit for Battelle and Pike was powerful, it was. Everything around it was just gobbledygook and jibberty jab and making stuff. And okay, the thing in the buffer was able to pull itself together, and then as we went through space, it jumped off into a ley line to another thing, and then Mbenga's name, he's written on the Destiny thing, and then it's like, look, I get it. This gives Battelle a destiny, just like Pike has a destiny. So yeah, they're both committed and are gonna sacrifice their lives to other things. So they get a moment where they get to have that whole life that they're never going to have. But then is it a loss? You have that bit. That's what I'm saying. In a way, it kind of, jibberty jab, Brandon. It kind of undercuts that emotional bit. It wasn't just like this love that I had to sacrifice herself for destiny's sake to trap these things. I mean, that's powerful. But at least we got to live an entire life together first before she went off. And now I can go off to hang with, messed up blonde girl in Big Head Land. Sure, they both have destinies. That's wonderfully and beautiful. But yeah, the whole rest of the episode to try and get to that emotional payoff. I realize this is sci-fi fantasy. That felt like magical fantasy. It was destiny and magical parts and finishing a quest and all types of stuff. And it didn't really feel, it didn't feel Star Trek. And again, while it was a great moment, I think it really would have been different if he had lost her. And then now you get to actually live a life, on, planet Big Head. I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of the aliens there, but you know what I'm talking about.
Talos 4.
Talos 4. Thank you.
I like Planet Big Head, though.
Yeah. All right, so this is where we disagree slightly. I had this as my number 2, and that's not to say I loved this episode. I didn't, but I did love that ending. Now, I definitely see the perspective of that. It does seem to come out of nowhere and is a bit jarring, but I am kind of willing to go with it, and maybe that's just my buy-in. I do think that I already mentioned that the whole evil thing is overdone, and they did that again in this episode, and the first half of the episode was really rushed. It was just like boom, boom, boom. Like Mbaga has to be there to open the door, and then he's not in the episode anymore. It's like it didn't seem. And the whole thing with Battelle having the magical powers just because she has the DNA from 3 species. Like there's plenty of characters in Star Trek that have DNA from multiple species that don't turn them into superheroes. But whatever. But here's the thing, though. Even though I do think it's too fantasy like, and I do think it is really contrived just to get to the point, I'm conflicted because I do not just the ending, but I like the overall arc that Battelle goes in this season. I didn't care for the there's a theory out there that she would turn into like a Gorn, and that would be why Gorns look like humans in the original series, and I'm so glad they didn't do that.
Oh God, yeah.
I saw a theory where she actually turns into the Gorn from
yeah.
I didn't like that either. Yeah.
No. And so even though this is ridiculous that she turns into a super being, I still think it's preferable, and I actually think it does fit as a through storyline through the season. Like she appears every once in a while. She seems a bit different. They definitely foreshadowed this in the other episode, the one we just covered, and so it is a bit silly and it is a bit ridiculous to get to the inner light thing, but I don't know. I just like the inner light thing so much that that I'm willing to just buy it.
Good.
Now, but that's not why. I mean, but it's why I don't consider it as a great episode, though. I can't consider it a great episode because there is too much gobbledygook in there. But I still really like it, despite that, because I think it's a great character story for Pike and for Patel, and I like that it touches back on what season 1 touched about Pike's destiny and about how in this alternate reality, like the crash never happened. And it does play again on the fact that Pike thinks that he knows he's going to end up in the BB chair, but he doesn't realize that he's going to live off, happily ever after in Big Head Planet.
Sure.
Big Head. So that's something that subtext that's there, and he thinks it's a horrible thing. But it's also, and I had the theory, and this is my interpretation, that this reality, like, really happened. It was an alternate reality, and they got to live their entire lives together. And so what we saw on screen was just the snippets. Like, he did live to be an old man and then went back into the moment that he left. And that's why he's so sort of disorientated. And so, yeah, it is very similar to In the Light. Like, and I hope that the show touches on this more. And I think that it was very touching. I think it was a beautiful way for her, because she knew that she couldn't be with them, and for her to say goodbye. And this is something like, because I knew that, like, anyone seeing the original series know that something happens to Battelle, that she's not with Pike by the time we get to the menagerie races. Something has to happen to her, either that be she leaves him or she dies. I didn't have turning into a statue on my bingo card, but okay. But I do like how they handled that. I do like how they had that big emotional moment before she left, and they actually did get to live happily ever after in a different reality. And so I think that was a beautiful way to send off her character. And so, yeah, I'm willing to buy into this episode maybe a little bit more, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I like the same thing. Like, that's why this episode didn't totally suck. That's all.
Yeah.
I like that too, but just to get there, some of this, I don't know, the superhero thing, and then turning into the statue, and the battle versus good and evil, and then those things. It's just like, yeah, I had too hard of a time with it.
Yeah, I didn't feel right putting it at a higher ranking just because that last bit was so effective. I mean, I got tears in my eyes several times through it. It was beautiful, but I'm like, yeah, but everything else is all just like,
Yeah.
All right. So I believe, Darren, we're up to you for number 4. Are we? Yes.
We're at our collective number 4. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then by default, this is actually, I think, my number 5. So we're still on the right here, and that is Shuttle to Kinfori, which is a wonderful side quest with zombies, and that's pretty much it. I mean, I guess we deal with. I mean, it's the next entry. What is this? The second entry in the Battelle arc, where things aren't working right, but there's a flower that we can go get. Fetch quest. And of course, with any fetch quest, you run into zombies. We get a little bit of Mbenga background and stuff, and then some concern from Pike that, wait, what's your plan? And she knows this, and you're going to integrate the DNA, and what's going to happen with all of that? So we do get some like emotional stuff that goes on, but honestly, I thought the whole Mbenga side thing of, again, connecting with the Klingon that he had to kill, and I guess he's got some radio marker in him because he ate the olive. Don't do that with Klingon drinks, I guess. And look, we like zombies; they're fun, but it didn't add a whole lot. We do get a little bit of Ortega's, having some command issues, um, which is all right. I guess I get it. It starts with an arc that I really thought they were going to develop more, but they went a different direction with her. And for some reason, Una has very weird hair in this episode. But that's about it. I mean, it was a fine enough episode. I don't really have too much to complain, but it was pretty standard. And again, it felt like we're using tropes to push larger storylines. And I just think their time could have been spent better. So I don't have too much negative to say about it, but there's really just not too much to add either.
This was my number 3. So I did have it a little bit higher. I think it was a great character story. So there's great character stories in it. Like the zombies are unnecessary. You don't even need them. You could have like 86 them and you lose nothing. But I love what they did with Ortegas in this episode. And I love seeing Una in command because we don't get enough of that, and seeing how she deals with that situation that Ortegas defied her orders and put the ship at risk just because she wanted to, and it had to do with the trauma that she was facing. And I think that all played out very good. I do love the interactions between Pike and Maga on the planet, and how they sort of solidified their friendship more. And they revealed like it was a big revelation that Maga killed that Klingon in season 2. But I thought that was I forgot that was up in the air. I thought it was evident that he did kill him, but maybe that was just my interpretation. But I did think the thing with the Klingon daughter being like, "Oh, you have to kill me in honorable." Like I didn't like that episode in season 2, so I wasn't that interested in seeing a follow-up to it, but it was okay. It was fine. But I do like the Pike and Battelle situation, how he was trying to sort of, that she purposely lied to him because she knew that he would try to stop her, and she wanted to be in control of her own destiny, and didn't like that he was being too controlling in that matter. And it was an interesting character interactions, and I think the actors played it very well. So there was a lot of character moments that I liked in this episode. So anyway.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said. I had this in my number 4, so it's actually right on the nose of where where I had it. I thought it was really strong character stories with zombies needlessly thrown in for no reason. Like you didn't need the zombies. Like you just take the zombies out, and this is a better episode in my opinion. Like it's just like, ooh, we got to do a zombie episode. Let's throw zombies in. They don't ruin the episode. I just don't think that they were necessary. I was more interested in the character stories. I think this is I think it's probably my favorite of the Battelle episodes of the season, because there is that really interesting dynamic between Pike and Battelle, where he's trying to be too controlling, and she's like, no, I'm not even going to tell you. And then he's mad about it, but then I think he comes to understand why she hid that from him. But all of that was good. And then you have the Pike and Mabanga stuff, which was also really good. And as far as, I didn't like that season 2 episode either with Mabanga. And I agree. To me, it was pretty obvious that he killed that Klingon dude. But I also recognize that the show was trying to make it as did he or didn't he? Because they like made it all blurry and you couldn't see it. And I'm like, well, just fucking show it. I know perfectly well that he killed him. And I've heard a lot of other reviewers saying like, oh, they're revealing that already? Like, I thought they would drag that out longer. I didn't know. Like, it could go either way, and now they've revealed it. But to me, it was obvious that he killed him. It was just like, I thought it was ridiculous that they, like, made it all obscured and try to hide it. Like, ooh, did he or didn't he? And, like, of course he did, obviously. So I was kind of glad that they got that out of the way instead of, like, dragging it on. Because to me, it was obvious that he killed him. That storyline was actually, I found it more interesting in this episode than I did in that season 2 episode. But still not my favorite. I was more into like the interactions between our Starfleet characters, between Pike and Patel, and that whole dynamic, and Pike and Mabanga, and their friendship. I don't think we've really gotten that deep into their friendship in any other episode, and I really enjoyed that. And then the Ortegas and weird haircut lady. What was the deal with her hair in this episode? Is so weird. But I love those interactions, and I love how number one dressed her down at the end, but was still like, her friend. And I thought that was really good. And we finally get like a decent Ortegas through arc, like a through storyline through the season. She's never gotten one before, even though they do kind of just drop it for several episodes after this. But I like, so there's all those character stuff is what I really enjoyed about this episode. If not for the zombies, I would have this rated higher.
Yeah, and I've got to say, if they had carried on some of this Ortega's line a little bit more, I might have enjoyed this bit, because I like the kind of, we've got issues that we're dealing with. And again, I like Ortega, so I wanted to see some of that. To me, it came up and then it didn't really go anywhere afterwards. I guess they do mention later on, like, well, I even told the captain to bring her back, back to duty. I think in the next episode. After this, they make some comment, but that's about it that they do. So yeah.
So I heard a theory of why Una had the weird hair, because I believe they had like a zero gravity scene in this episode where everyone was floating. So I heard the theory was that they did that so her hair wouldn't be all wild and everywhere. But
there are many hairstyles they could have done that don't look like that.
Yeah, because they had to
button it would be fine. Like,
but again, but how would you know that? And you never have that any other time, so it's just distracting. If she had a different episode every different hairstyle every episode, so she's like trying stuff, then okay, at least it would be like a little subtle arc. But it's like, no, just this one time there, Bob.
But to be fair, I'm just happy they got rid of that hairdo and then didn't bring it back. All right, so let's get to our collective number 3. It's my turn now, and I personally think this episode is a bit too high, so that leads me with the feeling that you two are going to like this episode better than me, and I'll have a different opinion, but that's Terrarium, which was number 6 on my thingy. I love that we finally got an Ortegas episode. Finally, it took them 3 seasons to finally get one. It was great to explore her character, and I think I don't mind the whole enemy mine thing. Like when Enterprise did it with that episode Dawn, it sucked terribly because they did a piss poor job at doing it, whereas this episode at least did a good job at doing it. I think part of it did feel like she started being friends with the Gorn a bit too quickly. It did feel a little bit too rushed, but that wasn't a big deal. Overall, I did like that. I liked her befriending a Gorn. I think that was a really great thing, and that undermines the bullshit that they were doing with the Gorn earlier, where the showrunners were saying, "Oh, they're not redeemable. There's no humanity to them. They're just evil monsters." I'm like, that's not fucking Star Trek, and that directly goes against Arena. So I think someone recognized that and realized how people felt about that, so they changed that in this episode, and I do appreciate it. What bothers me about this episode the most is the ending. And again, I have a feeling you two will disagree with me on this, but I didn't like the fact that La'an killed the Gorn. It felt kind of rushed and contrived, and it's like they're rescuing someone trapped on the asteroid. Why are they beaming down a security team armed with phaser rifles while they're going into battle? That didn't really make any sense to me. But even if that does make sense, I just feel like the story would have been better if they just had the Gorn survive and they dropped the Gorn off of the planet and she lives happily ever after. I just think, to me, that would be a better ending, because the ending they set up is Ortegas is conflicted between La'an killing, her good friend. And then they never play on that anyway. So what's the point of even doing it? And of course, the other thing about the ending I hate, which I'm sure you will agree with me on, is the Metrons. Like, ooh, Metrons, you remember them from the original series? Like, we don't need this. It was so goofy, and I never liked the Metrons to begin with. They're hypocrites who say like, "Oh, you're savages," yet they like force two people to fight to the death and say they're going to destroy the ship. You're no better. And then, and this episode is not any different, where they strand these two people on the planet where they could die just to see if they get along, and one of them did die, and like, oh well, like fuck that. Fuck the Metrons. And it's such shameless fan service, and I didn't need to see that. So as much as I like the bulk of the episode, the ending does put a little sour for me. But anyway, Alyssa.
Yeah, this is landing in our collective number 3, which is perfect because it was my number 3. I liked this episode a lot. I 100% agree with the Metrons, but it was the only thing I didn't like. And actually, there were 2 things I didn't like. The other thing was this whole ticking clock thing, which again is another example of like the lazy writing that I found. That so like, why were they doing this scientific mission where they're sending Ortegas into the shuttlecraft to explore this thing if they had to go deliver these vaccines? And the vaccines didn't really seem that pressing, because they were like, waited 2 days, and they were like, well, we should get to that eventually. So it was just it was poorly written. It was kind of clunky. So I didn't love that, but that it didn't really hurt the episode that much. The Metrons, I ended up taking a half point off the score because I liked it so much I was going to give it a 9, and then the Metrons appeared in like 8.5 because the Metrons were worth minus 0.5 at least, because I totally agree on that. We didn't need it. It was stupid. It also goes against canon, and I'm not always a canon hawk, but since I just don't think that this scene was not necessary, I just think the scene was not necessary, then you're like retconning something for no reason. Like, because you didn't even need to do this. And what I mean by that is that in Arena, and granted it's been a while since I've watched it, but I'm pretty sure it's portrayed as like, oh, we're putting these 2 like inferior species together to see what happens, not like we're putting specifically humans and Gorns together, which in this episode they're like, oh, we need more studies for human and Gorn. Oh, Arena, this Arena's coming.
So in Arena is because the 2 ships crossed through their space, the Metron space. That was the reason given in that episode. Yeah.
Yeah. But in this one, it's like, oh, we're going to need to study humans and Gorn specifically later on, which is not what was happening in Arena. So it's just, yeah. And I'm not a canon hawk all the time, but it's like you're retconning it for no particular reason. And so half a point off the score. But the reason why I have it rated so high is because I thought it was a really powerful Ortega story. We're finally getting an Ortega story. And granted, I also admitted in my review that it's possible that I'm rating it higher because I was starving for an episode that didn't totally suck, because this followed 2 of the worst episodes of the season. And I was like, oh my god, an episode that doesn't totally suck. So like, if it had been surrounded by some mediocre episodes, then maybe I wouldn't like it as much. But I don't mind the enemy mine plot. I did hear some people complaining that Star Trek's done this before. I don't care that Star Trek is doing it again, as long as they do it well. I would rather them stick to something tried and true and bring something new to it than do all these gimmicks. Like I said in my review, that I would rather that they do this plot again in season 4, like have Mabanga get stuck on a planet with a Klingon or something like that, and do the same exact plot again, if it means you're using that to replace the fucking puppets. Like, I would rather they just do this plot over and over than the puppets. So I don't mind them redoing old things as long as they're bringing something new to it. And what they're bringing new to it is a season-long arc, even though, like I said, they abandoned it for a few episodes. It's something that started earlier, was Ortega's coming face to face with her trauma, and coming face to face with this Gorn. And I 100% agree about the fact that I love that they're actually giving depth to the Gorn, and that they're not just these evil monsters, because that was the whole point of them in the original series, to show that they're not just these evil monsters. So I like that we've gotten back to that. And I love the Ortega story. And I didn't mind the ending of Luann. I did agree that it was a little ridiculous that they would beam down a security team with giant rifles. Like, I didn't understand the point of that. But her killing the Gorn, I did like how that affected Ortegas, even if we didn't follow up with it on the next episode, because the next episode was about something completely different. But yeah, I didn't mind that. So overall, I really love the episode. Could have done without the Metrons.
So one thing I forgot to mention is that when I was watching the episode and the Lon was appearing and Ortega's like in the Gorn went out of the thing, I was like, Ortega's protect the Gorn, say don't shoot. I was expecting her to do it. I was even shouting at my screen, but she didn't do that, and of course the Gorn died. But anyway, Darrin.
Yeah, look, I agree with everything that you all said. It is number 2 on my list, but also I'm a sucker for an Ortegas episode, and I've been waiting for one, so I was just really happy that we finally got it. And yeah, sure, recognize very quickly that, oh my God, they're just doing Arena again. And yeah, sure, they add a little enemy mine, or maybe that Galactica 1980 episode with Starbuck in that honestly kind of permanently scarred me for life. So I liked the idea behind it, even though it was rehashed. Now, at the end, when they actually bring in the Metrons, I'm like, oh my God, they are actually doing Arena. That's a little far. And to me, this is another thing where this would have been a great addition if it was a current timeline, a legacy timeline, as opposed to a prequel timeline, because Arena is like a step backwards. It's, we're going to fight, and then at the end, I realized, no, I shouldn't. You're just a creature just doing your own thing. In this one, they're friends. That the one is lonely, he says, and this is why we help, and this is that's like an evolution of relationship. So why would you need to test this again in Arena? It's just, again, I like the episode, but when they got to just slink it into canon and try and make those connections, I really think that's what undercuts all of these episodes. And perhaps that's why they had to kill the Gorn at the end, but for the exact reason that pissed me off. It's like, no, you should say something. Of course, the Gorn has to jump out. I'm the big monster. Yeah. It would have been a better evolution to not have had that. But I liked Ortega's. I liked her little arc here. Again, I kind of wish hers was the season-long arc as opposed to Patel, but I get we got to have that whole Pike relationship thing wrapped up. So cool. And yeah, even at the end when she's honestly weighing these things, like, hey, she was my friend and Leon's my friend, and I got to figure out how to balance that out. We're not coming to a conclusion with that. And I kind of like that you leave it a little bit messy at the end, that we're still kind of dealing with that stuff. Sorry, I don't know if you're hearing my dog going off in the background here. He's got his own comments to make about the show. But again, I'm just going to admit that I'm a sucker that I finally got kind of a cool episode, even if it is a really complete rehash of other ideas and ends in a way I don't really like. I felt that it was at least a good solid episode. So, I mean, I couldn't go against it. My only thing, and I think I made this made this comment in Alyssa's review, is when they pause to learn board games, they're like, oh, we got to learn language. It's the only way we're going to beat this thing in the time that we have allowed. But first, let's teach each other chess. was weird. I liked the character bit, but it did feel kind of like, you just said that you have almost like a time limit to figure this out. this seems like an odd thing, but I did, like the character thing, and she gets a little piece at the end that she puts on her shelf.
There's always time for chess too.
Fair. I can't deny that either.
But that onto itself was an Easter egg because Kirk and Spock were playing chess in the first pilot where no man has gone before, or the second pilot, I should say. But so that was definitely a slight nudge. In the chat, Brandon was saying the other thing is they mentioned Captain Decker's ship, a nudge, nudge. Captain being Commodore Decker from the episode Doomsday Machine. And those are the kind of Easter eggs I don't mind when you just slightly say, "Oh, Captain Decker," but it's just a throwaway line. If you've never seen the original series, it doesn't matter. You don't care. But if you have, you're like, "Hey, I know that guy." So that's fine. The Metrons being it's a kind of Easter egg I don't like. It's just like, we are the Metrons for fan service or whatever. But then
yeah, I agree. Like that's a true Easter egg. Like if you don't know the episode, if you don't know the reference, and you wouldn't know any different. That's what an Easter egg actually is. So I have no problem with that at all. But yeah, the Metrons was laying it on too thick. Like you just didn't need them. One other thing I forgot to I just thought of this. Another thing that I did like, even though a lot of people have rightly complained that she made this little translator thing a little bit too quickly. Whatever. Star Trek does stuff like that.
I'm fine with that.
But I like the result. I like that because at first I thought it was going to be like, "Hi, my name is Betty, and I'm a whatever." I just be like over the top. Like, but I like the agree and disagree. Like I thought that was really powerful. Yeah, I like that. That was a nice touch for me.
Well, and it's nice because they've tried to establish that she's a gearhead, but not really a techie. Yeah. So the fact that she could make something work, but it's not particularly advanced, I think is good, because otherwise you always have everybody that's just like, wait, I got a toothpick and an old tricorder and a rock. I can make a phaser. Like, no, you can't. She makes water and is extremely happy about it, so I was like, okay.
That reminded me a bit of something like The Martian, but
yeah. I think who was it made the comment in here that that's medical for I just peed. So
I think Brandon said that.
Yeah.
All right, Alyssa. So start with the number 2. We'll talk about number 2, and then after that, do number 1.
All right, so our collective number 2, I think, just proves just how mediocre this season is. An incredibly mediocre episode has slipped and snuck all the way up to number 2 on our collective list. It's just slipped in there. This was number 5 on my list. Very mediocre episode, and that's Hegemony Part 2. That was the season premiere. I thought this episode was okay. I was thankful that it didn't totally suck, as often season-ending cliffhangers do. And in fact, the majority of season-ending cliffhangers, in my opinion, throughout Star Trek history, the first part is decent, if not very good, and the second part sucks ass. And I think people think of of Best of Both Worlds, and that's like the ultimate standard, but that is the exception, not the rule. A Scorpion from Voyager is another one that was very good, but I think Equinox in Voyager, the part 2 was just a flaming piece of shit. The Descent Part 2, flaming piece of shit. Actually, Equinox and Descent had the same really bad storyline where their AI character, like, you just changed their programs to like take away their ethics program, and all of a sudden they hate all the people that they like. Like, if you take away your ethics program, then that means that they would be evil towards the people they don't like, towards the bad guys. But anyways,
I see the problem. Someone set this doll to evil.
And times arrow too.
Yeah. So that was the bar going into this. And I'm like, thank God it didn't totally suck. But I did think part 1 was better. and I had just watched part 1 because I watched all of season 2 right before season 3 premiered so that I would have it fresh in my head. And I definitely enjoyed part 1 more. I thought I thought it was a little more exciting. Part 2, there was a lot of excitement in it. Um, yeah, there was some, the thing with Patel. If we hadn't already seen her in the trailer, I would have thought she could have legitimately died in this episode. But even having seen her in the trailer, I still thought that was exciting, and I liked all of that stuff. And I did feel, for me, I didn't hear a lot of other people say this, so it was probably just a me thing. I thought that the climax was a little anticlimactic. I don't know. It just seemed, as again, it's just like the lazy writing throughout the season. It just kind of, it was weird that like they're taking the ship into the, like, I can't remember now. It's been a while, but like they're taking it into the heart of the sun or something like that. It's something like extremely dangerous. And Luann comes in and the other ship and is contacting them. And I was expecting them to be like, hey, we're a little busy right here. We're flying into the heart of the sun. Like, how do they have time to like talk with her? And then like, oh, we're going to beam these people out. And like, when they said, oh, we beamed 200 people over, I'm like, no, you didn't. Like, it just didn't seem like a real thing. That it was just like a line of dialogue that like it happened because we said it. And I'm like, so it was just that threw me a little bit. That was a little off. In a lot of ways, like it reminded me of the season 1 episode Memento Mori, but not quite as good. I loved Memento Mori, but it had the same kind of thing where like Pike is just making these split second, like really unorthodox decisions, and I think that's Pike at his best as a captain, and he was doing that here too. So I did like that. But I come away from this episode, I think I gave it a 7 out of 10. So it was like, yeah, it's average. It's fine. It's pretty good. So, and here it is all the way up at our number 2.
Yeah. This was my number 3, but by the same way, kind of default, just because I didn't really like the hijinks episodes and the Patel arc kind of annoyed me. So where do I put this within that arc? And again, much like I rate Terrarium high because I was excited we finally got an Ortega episode, this is probably higher than it deserves to be because I did like Hegemony Part 1 a lot, and I was so excited when this season was dropping, and I was like, man, I really want to see how this episode is going to wrap up. And I mean, it wrapped it up, I guess, technically. I mean, there was an episode and then it ended. So, yeah. Now, the idea of like, we have to deal this because we don't have time to warn the Federation because of distance and the whole thing going. Okay, there's your ticking clock. Yeah, flying between 2 suns where there's going to be a giant, coronal mass ejection or whatever the heck, that was kind of cool. But yeah, you're right. Just the part 2s just don't carry the same energy and stuff. And when they're on the ship and they get the main cast out and they're like, well, we don't have time to get these people out. Let's battle and run across the whole ship before they melt and then fly it out of here. And then we can probably get them. I think they might have saved as many people. I don't know how many people were gone. Maybe it took too long to melt them. More people should have been melted. Maybe they should have been like, oh, we lost some people. That might have been better. And yeah, this is where we where Ortegas gets gut punched and ripped open by the Gorn. And that's kind of cool, in the flying while bleeding and dedicating, hey, she's a pilot. That's cool. I like that. I think that the one that really started pulling me out even amidst this episode is because they didn't put Patel in the transport buffer, which they have already established is a way to freeze the progress of any disease, because that's what Mbega's kid was in.
Sorry, just going to interject, because if I remember correctly, I think they did float that possibility and dismissed it because of, I don't know, some techno bullshit.
I missed that part, but again, then they're like, oh, what? So what they come up with is we're going to hit you with the Illyrian blood to feed the Gorn so that then they can be reabsorbed by your body because then they'll stop trying to get out. I mean, that to me was the whole gobbledygook. And when I was like, wow, they're really trying to go somewhere with this. I had no idea that this was just the whole start of an adventure arc for Batel Gorn Flower Girl. But yeah, I mean, that was just the one where I was like, this is this whole extra drama they're throwing on when, again, we've already established this to be a thing. And maybe they said it and dismissed it for whatever reason. I didn't catch that, and I will maintain my criticism because the rest of the stuff that came up, I think, was even more BS-y. But yeah, that's what really kind of undercut. So yeah, it just made me sad. I was really, and maybe in a way, this was very appropriate and really set the stage for the season to come because I was really excited about season 3, and I was really excited about where this particular part 2 was going to end because I loved where they ended. Like, oh my God, they were kidnapped and not on the ship. Oh, what's going to happen? And then by the time this episode, I was like, oh, well, I mean, okay, yeah, that was okay. No, we're gonna be great. And then Wedding Bell Blues is the next episode. So, which again, I know you liked, and I totally get what you're saying, but to follow up this one, and they did that time jump that I always hate between episodes. So, yeah.
I do want to say though about the transporter buffer thing. To be fair, like that whole thing, the whole transfer, putting people's pattern in a transporter buffer as a way of finding a cure is like something that could have been used many, 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 many times on all the other Star Treks that they don't use it. So it's just kind of a thing that's unique to Strange New Worlds that they probably should shove aside and forget about because it kind of doesn't really. I mean, anytime in any Star Trek episode you ever see, if somebody's having a disease and they're trying to cure it, they should have put them in the transporter buffer. So it almost is like maybe we should just.
They should have done that in Shades of Grey, so we wouldn't have to sit through all those stupid flash clips.
Was this the one where they were trying to do the cryo thing, but she was allergic to the cryo fluid? Was this one, or was this the next Batel episode?
Oh, I don't know. I think it was this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's why they had to use the Illyrian blood because they couldn't stop it from going because she's allergic to the cryo fluids.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, again, to be super nerdy, there was one example when they put someone in a buffer, and that was the Relics episode.
Relics,
but
it wasn't
most of the time,
or whatever.
Yeah, most of the time they never did that.
Yeah.
And to be fair, there's a couple episodes of TNG where they like brought someone back to life with the transporter or some shit like that, and that was never touched on again. But
but by the end of the season, you have aliens reconstructing their own pattern from inside the buffer and then jumping onto space ley lines. Wow. So yeah.
Oh yeah, that was ridiculous. But anyway. So this is also my number 5. I think, it does show you how average the season is that this slipped up to number 2. Also, it's had to do with the fact that we couldn't agree on our number 2 and we each knocked each other's number 2s out. So this slipped in. But it does look like we all had the same number 1. So that is something. So I thought this episode was the definition of fine. It's fine. It was okay. Nothing offensively bad about it. Nothing particularly great about it. I mean, there was a few things that bothered me, but not enough for me to not like the episode a lot. But it's definitely a downgrade from Hegemony Part 1. And also, like, because Brandon in the chat mentioned that he didn't couldn't be bothered watching part 1 before watching part 2, and most people I think would be totally lost. Like, and it's been 2 years.
Yeah. Oh,
2
yeah.
years. This is why modern track should not do these in between season cliffhanger things. Like, I mean, granted, they didn't know the writer's strike was going to happen. That delayed it even more. But even so, even if it was just 1 year, like in TNG DS Voyager Land, it was 3 months. I didn't have to wait 2 years. And so I felt like I had to watch part 1 before. Otherwise, I would have no idea what's going on. And I did find that to be the case. So the thing with the people being in the tubes that are eating them alive, they were like, when the main characters got out, they're like, oh, well, we don't have enough, we can't bring everyone with us, so let's just leave them in the tubes that are slowly killing them. Like, what? Like, they're dying right now. How many people died because you weren't willing to get them out of the tubes right away? It like took them a long time to get out.
They're not main characters.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Ensign, look, if I can't remember your name, you're not important.
Yeah. They were all red shirts, but anyway, like, oh yeah, they're not a main character. It was so contrived. And they did escape a bit like too easily, I think. But whatever. Like, it's a Star Trek, they do stuff like that. But I did feel like, so I had mixed feelings about the ending where they forced all the Gorn to hibernate, because on one hand I'm like, oh good, that means they're not doing the Gorn anymore. Thank God, we had enough of the Gorn. I don't really want to see them again, so good. But on the other hand, it felt like that Simpsons episode with the principal. We found out Principal Skinner was actually a different person, and at the end of the episode they kicked the real Skinner out of town, like, woo, I decree that we never speak of this ever again, sort of thing. It did seem a little bit like that, just an easy way to wipe everything under the carpet, but whatever. I mean, it's fine. And I did kind of like the Battelle stuff here. I was actually very confused. I had to like go online and ask people, like, what the hell actually happened? Like, how did they save her life? I thought that was very unclear. In this episode. but it was suspenseful. It was like, there was some good like scenes with Pike and being a good captain and getting the ship through difficult situations. So it's fine. It's fine.
Oh, another thing, you were just mentioning the thing about them putting the Gorn to sleep. I forgot to mention what that actually reminded me of was sleep. So I was like, okay, we're doing this in the second part of the cliffhanger again, where we're putting the enemy to sleep, and that's our solution. Okay, sure. but I was okay with it too, again, like you said, because no more Gorn. Except for the one that gets trapped on the planet with.
Yeah, I was going to say, except for the Gorn babies in Battelle and the one we see later on.
But no more like fighting the Gorn.
Yeah, not being the main villain anymore.
Yeah, no more like Aliens episodes.
Yeah, exactly. And the one where the other Gorn was on the planet with Ortegas was fine, because they actually like play them as dynamic and not evil monsters, so that they get a pass on that one. All right, well, Alyssa, we're up to our number 1.
You want me to introduce the number 1?
Yeah, introduce the number 1.
So it looks like on our collective list, and this was my favorite of the season. And as I said in my review, it's not a good thing that this was my favorite of the season, because I think in either of the other seasons this would be no higher than my 3rd favorite episode, and I think season 1 possibly my 4th favorite episode. But here it is, we're in season 3, and that's what we got. So my favorite episode is The Salat Who Ate Its Tail. And as much as I was complaining about getting too much into the year 1 stuff and the TOS stuff, that's more of my fear for the future. Like, I don't want them to go down that road too much. but when they do it, like I do enjoy it. Like I enjoy Paul Wesley as Kirk. I really love Martin Quinn as Scotty. I think he's a great like young Scotty finding his way. I love that they hired an actual Scottish actor. I cannot stand the what's this nuts from the J.J. Abrams movies. Like he makes Scotty into it's like a caricature of Scotty.
Simon Pegg, yeah.
Simon
Pegg.
Pegg, yeah.
Like I'm sure he's perfectly fine at what he does normally, but I can't stand him as Scotty. So, and I liked this. I like that we get an early character sketch of Kirk, but we're also not neglecting the Strange New Worlds characters. It's not like they were off the show entirely and like just not on screen at all. Like they still got their own storyline. We still had Pike and Luann working together, which is really interesting. We got some good scenes with Pelia over on the Enterprise. And the phone, the old timey phone thing, which we saw in the trailer, I was like, "Oh no, that's going to be a stupid hijinks thing that they're going to take too far." But they didn't really go too far with it. It was just kind of a little bit of a gag they kind of threw in there, and it wasn't too bad. So I did actually like the stuff that they showed on the Enterprise as well. So I thought we had two good storylines happening here, and having like an early version of the TOS crew all together. On the Farragut, I did enjoy that. I did especially liked Kirk and Scotty's interactions where we see an early version of Kirk who's a little hot-headed and is literally pushing Scotty to do something that he physically can't do, which later on, of course, he learns, to kind of push Scotty a little bit to do something he knows he can do, even though if it seems a little impossible. But at that point, Kirk and Scotty have this trust. They built this trust together, and this is before that. So Kirk is asking him to do something that is physically impossible, and Scotty's like, "Yeah, I told you I couldn't do that." And maybe not everybody loved this, but I actually did like the miracle worker line where he was like, "I want you to be a miracle worker," because it just shows the contrast between what would come later. And we didn't mention in that other episode we forgot to talk about the Kirk and Spock thing and the finale. But here I liked the Kirk and Spock thing. I think that's where I started worrying. And the finale is when I started worrying, oh, they might be going a little bit. I'm worried in season 4 they're going to dive too much into this, because the finale one, it was just like, oh, Kirk and Spock with their friends. Whereas this like made a lot more sense to me. Or Spock being like, well, I guess I'll be the one who goes and talks to him. And like it's still kind of awkward between them. They're not really friends, but Spock is doing his duty as a Starfleet officer. And then you can see kind of the like seedling of their friendship developing there, but it's not like laid on too thick. So I liked it here. The thing they did in the finale was it was getting a little bit too far for me, and it makes me worry about the future of the show. But this I liked, so it was a great early character sketch for Kirk. So I liked this episode a lot, and it was my favorite of the season.
Yeah. This was definitely one where I'm like, I don't know, we're going to do this. It's, early Kirk messes with the crew and they have their first adventure. But they made some really great choices. There was a little bit in some of the early writing. I think the scene that got me is when they showed up and he's trying to recount what happened. And he's like, we're there. And then just, all hell broke loose. And all I'm like is, you're a Starfleet officer. You would say, this is what happened. We detected this. Then we had a gravitational wave. And then it went on. He went on to explain it. But it was like the kind of goofy character stuff, because we're young Kirk, kind of detracted from me. And it did make me worry about the episode. But they zigged when they normally would have zagged in a lot of the really good bits. Yeah, the whole I need you to make it do it and you'll make it happen because you're amazing. And that repair doesn't work. And now they're even in worse position. That's a great choice. That they're not syncing up and that Spock is the one that has to go in and talk with them. And you're right, versus the finale when they did the mind meld. And he's like, well, I guess now you can call me Jim since we're so close. That was like too much, where this was like, no, there's a respect that's starting to happen. I can see where you're going and I can see where this balance, you start to see how the balance of the characters work well, because you have the adventurous one and then the logical one and then the one who's, basically you have kind of Scotty playing almost the McCoy character in this of like, well, this is the reality of what things can actually happen. And again, normally they would, you've got all the characters that are on the Enterprise together working with each other. And that would normally seem very set up, but this seemed actually very natural that these would be the characters that would be here dealing with this stuff. So I think, again, that made a situation that would seem, contrived actually work. And I have to say, the end, when you realize that it's humans that are on board and you can't save them. And again, they leave you with that. They don't try to explain things. They don't try to fancy things up. Oh, we've got to do this. Oh, there's a better way to do it. No, these are humans. They knew who you are and they attacked. And yeah, they were this group that I guess was very expected to do great things, and then they got lost, and then they turned, and is a warning of like where we could all go. The fact that this were the best of us, and they turned into murderous pirates that were more than happy to kill all the humans on board of your ship. So, but they leave you with that moral quandary and conundrum. They don't clean it up easily. And I think that was the right way to end this episode. In so many other ways, they would have found some quick cleanup. And like, honestly, one of my favorite episodes, which is hard to watch, but it's great, from season 1, where you have the planet that Pike knew the girl from. And then you find out that this kid that he rescued is going to be sacrificed to power their civilization. And it leaves us with that. He doesn't go and fix things. They don't make the civilization better. No, this is who they are. And now you have to leave and exist and go on with it. That's a weight that I think was really well handled in season 1. And they did that again here, where they leave a heavy moral question and conundrum in your body and don't solve it and don't crack a joke and don't make it light, but leave it with you to think about. And I think that's when Star Trek really is, to me, that's when Star Trek is cooking with gas. That's when it has some of its best storylines, when it really can hit with those philosophical conundrums and let us think about them as opposed to giving us an answer. So yeah, this was not, when I was looking at the episode list and then hearing that this was it's a Kirk adventure on the Enterprise, I was like, oh no. Especially considering all the other episodes that had led up to this. So this was such a refreshing shot in the arm to go, oh my God, we actually got a good solid Star Trek episode out of something that I thought would be completely contrived and rehashed material. And again, I think they set up the connection with the characters in a very organic, natural way that didn't need to add any more, and certainly didn't need a mind meld at the end of the season so they could learn what happened on Orion 4 that one time, I guess.
So yeah, this was also my favorite episode of the season. For me, it felt like a season 1 episode, and if it wasn't season 1, I think it would have been my second or third favorite, probably. I'm not sure, because it just felt like, because you were talking about how the writing in the rest of the season's like sloppy or derivative. This one felt tight, like it was a tight script. It felt like it's a good character story for Kirk, but it's also at the same time a really good ensemble character. Like you get both ships, you get ensemble things happening. I think they did it again, they did a good job of juggling these different storylines into one very engaging and cohesive, suspenseful storyline. And the what I guess a nitpick I have is, why did Una go down to pull the trigger thing, and when she could have sent anyone to do that, instead of actually being in command of the ship, instead she left the bridge to Ortegas, who was acting up before. So that part was minor nitpick, but overall, I thought the same thing about the phone thing when I saw that in the trailers. I'm like, oh my god, they're gonna do another. I kept dreading another gimmick episode coming up with the phone, but it was just a one-time thing. And Alyssa, did you mention the Grateful Dead reference?
Yeah,
I did in my review. I didn't mention it tonight. No, that was exciting for me because I believe the first Grateful Dead reference in Star Trek.
Yeah.
And as I said in my review, I've always had this video essay in my head that I'm probably never going to do that shows all the similarities between the Grateful Dead and Star Trek, and how it's shocking to me that there's not more crossover in the fandom because they're so similar. So I was like, a Dead reference. So yeah.
Yeah, and they did it for a Star Trek 4 type of joke where she was like, I was the roadie with the dead, and Ortega said something like, what, people came back from the dead back then? Or something like that. Didn't get the reference, which I like. So there was fun moments intertwined in there, good character moments, even seeing Pike and La'an fighting those weird things and trying to it was super intense and suspenseful. And at the same time, you get the early relationship with Kirk and our known characters so far, and yes, it was a little bit but as Darrin mentioned, not as bad as it was in the finale, and it was. I did like the way they went by making Scotty actually actively be pissed off with Kirk, but then the two reconcile later and learn to deal with each other, and I also like the fact that this is Kirk first time really commanding a ship in a crisis situation, and so we see him a bit out of his depth, which is really different from the original series where he was always on top of things. He was always witty, maybe a bit too overpowered of a character at times, but it's good seeing that this is the lead up to that, to him, the learning process, and I thought that was very interesting. And I thought the ending with the enemies actually being human beings was fascinating. It reminded me of the ending of Star Trek Beyond. These turned out to be humans as well. But yeah, no, I thought that was fascinating. And Pike did point out, they saw us. They knew we were human beings, and they decided to attack us and try to kill us anyway. So there's definitely... And the fact that it really upset Kirk when he found out that he killed them and whatever, and that Pike is again giving him, mentoring him, and I think that was a good thing. However, we were talking about crossovers earlier, and I maybe it's just me, but when they revealed that human, I was like, it's James Holden. Maybe it's because he was wearing a spacesuit and they had a beard or whatever. And I was like, God, it's James Holden. So this is an Expanse crossover. I guess they took the ship into the ring gate and got trapped or something, and now they're pirating ships.
And look, Paul Wesley did an amazing job with Kirk in this. I've actually learned to really appreciate his work.
Absolutely.
And you're right, that last little bit, and I think they did well, is he's brash, but you see where he's learning. You see where he is going. I think you can track that even with that last conversation with Pike, is you're setting up. It's like, this is why Kirk works the way that he does later on.
So I think personally that Paul Wesley got better at doing Kirk because I feel like this felt more like Kirk to me, the way he played it in this episode, and not in a way that's an imitation of William Shatner like he did in that stupid holodeck episode.
Yes.
But so he's still doing his own thing. He's not copying William Shatner, but it just feels like he's more into the cadence, and the way he talks, and the way he holds himself just feels more like Kirk to me in this episode.
Well, see, personally, I felt that way from the very first episode he was in, Quality of Mercy. Like I was saying when that episode came out, that's what I felt about him. But better late than never. You picked up on that.
Yeah, I always had a little issue with him before, but yeah, I'm over that now. I think he's really good as Kirk, and I agree he's much better than Chris Pine because Chris Pine is Chris Pine, and plus they're playing in those reboot movies. They play Kirk like this James Bond type frivolous character who Kirk never was like that. But anyway,
yeah, but it's another timeline, so they can do whatever they want.
Yeah,
that Kirk listens to Beastie Boys, man.
A timeline when he had daddy issues. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Just an excuse to do Star Trek without actually doing Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I think we can wrap up this discussion here. I wasn't keeping track of what our top 10 was. I don't know if we really need to recap it.
I could probably recapture. So number 10 was 4.5 Vulcans. I believe number 9 was What is Starfleet. Number 8 was Space Adventure Hour. Number 7 was Wedding Bell Blues. Number 6, I think, was Through the Lens of Time.
Yes.
And then number 5 was New Life and New Civilizations. Then number 4 was Shuttle Taken 40. Number 3 was Terrarium. Number 2 was Hegemony Part 2. And number 1 was The Slide Away His Tail.
Yeah, there we go. What? So I gotta ask, like, what was your motivation in doing this sort of format for this video?
Honestly, because I missed out on the MCU thing, and that was my choice, and I declined to participate, and I was also thankful that I wasn't a part of it, like watching you guys, because it went on for so long. So, like, I would not have been able to sit there for that long, and
yep.
I would have, like, my eyes would have been glazing over. I would have had to leave. But I do enjoy that format, and we haven't done it in a while. And also, like, I wanted to do something different. It's like we always do, like, let's go in episode order. So it was like, let's do something different for this one. And so that was like, well, I didn't get to do the MCU thing. Let's do that. That'll be fun. We'll mix things up a little bit, like do it a little different way. So that's mainly it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there were some subtle differences between our, but like a lot of things were similar.
Yeah, we're mostly. I mean, Darrin derailed my number 2, but
I always derail somebody's number 2. Man.
You derailed my number 2 too, Darrin.
I did.
But I admit that. I was expecting it because the way Darrin made a comment on one of my Facebook posts that kind of alluded to Wedding Bell Blues, and I was like, oh, he didn't like this episode. So I kind of was expecting it, so I'm not surprised.
I just want more space adventure in my Space Adventure Hour. But not like that one episode.
Yeah, always fun doing these things and seeing people's different opinions and stuff. Anyway, so that's it for this live discussion. Do we want to give a rating out of 10 for the season as a whole?
Worse than the other 2? We'd just say that.
I mean, I did mine in my review, but if you want me to repeat it, I can.
Sure.
So my rating out of 10 for season 3 is a 6. So, and I gave season 1 a 9, and season 2 initially I gave it a 9, and then from my rewatch I was like, well, maybe it's an 8 because maybe it's a little bit less than season 1. So I gave it an 8, and then this one I'm like, well, it can't be any worse than a 7. But then I just like when I was honest with myself, and I'm like, I can't. What about this? Like it had 3 terrible episodes and no great episodes. It had Salada Days' Tale, really good episode, really strong episode, but not one of the greats. So it's like it didn't have a great episode and it had 3 horrible episodes. How is this a 7? So I'm giving it a 6, and should be thankful to have that. So that's where I'm at with season.
Yeah, I was debating between a 6 and a 7, but I think I ultimately landed on a 7. I think I did like a couple of episodes more than you did, like the Salada's Tale and the finale. I'm a sucker for the inner light thing. So I just, very slightly gave it a 7 out of 10. I think I gave season 1 a 10 and season 2 an 8 and this one a 7. So going back. But anyway, Darren.
Yeah, I think I would go with 6 also. I mean, only because it had too many hijinks. There were too many bad episodes, and the arc, while interesting, I don't think was totally worth it. So yeah, it's like the best episode that we ranked is a good, solid Star Trek episode, but it's not great.
Yeah.
And even the rest of the episodes, I put Terrarium at number 2 with the huge caveat of it's because it's an Ortegas episode and I like it, but also acknowledge it is a complete redo of other stuff. And honestly, that's like more than half of this season is redos of previously done stuff.
See, as I said before, I don't mind if they redo other stuff as long as they bring something new to it. I felt Terrarium did, Space Adventure Hour did not.
Yes.
So I would much rather them do old stuff with a new twist to it or new take to it. I would much rather them do that than the fucking puppets. Like no puppets. No puppets. Like
Yeah, agreed.
If that's your one hijinks episode, then fine. But that's your one.
Hopefully, it's the only one.
I kind of doubt it.
Yeah, I doubt it too, but one can hope. I can dream. Anyway, Brandon had a question. Was anyone else freaked out by the eye gouging, or was it just me? I don't know if freaked out would be the term I would use. Unnecessary and cheesy, I think, would be more the terms I would use. Like, it just felt like, they're just doing this to be edgy or shocking. It's unnecessary.
I'm with you, Mark.
Yeah.
Because the entities are pure evil.
Exactly. And again, I thought about Event Horizon because the dude in there turned evil and ripped his eyes out. And I feel like they're just, anyway.
Yeah, but that's Sam Neill. He can do
I forgot. Anyway, so we're gonna go ahead and wrap everything up here. I want to thank everyone who hopped in the chat today: Brandon, J. Kamen 99, Will Ferrell number 1, and Woodrow. Thanks for stopping by, and anyone else who's watching and didn't comment, thanks for checking us out, and of course, anyone watching us in the archives. Thanks.
There was also a Google user at the beginning.
At the beginning, but that person hasn't seen Strange New World, so they left pretty soon.
Yeah.
Which is smart. You don't want to spoil yourself. But anyway, hopefully they'll come back and watch it after they watch the show. But anyway, thanks everyone for dropping by. And if I don't know if Darren definitely has some big news, so I'll let you go first about what you have going on.
We are doing reviews of Alien Earth, which is over on Hulu, or I guess technically FX on Hulu. We're doing that on Wednesday night with Rob over from Smirking Gun Reviews. So we've got 2 episodes left. Overall, good series. It's got some ups and downs, but it's got some good ideas. So we've got 2 more episodes of that. We'll be back this Wednesday and then next Wednesday to wrap things up. We also have a new podcast that we are putting together, Rob and I, called The Outer Rim, because we feel like we're out in the outer rim of the YouTube galaxy here on the small channels. So we're going to be talking kind of more than just pop cultural stuff. We do a lot of that with our reviews. We're going to use this podcast to talk about kind of bigger worldviews, personal stuff, different ideas and stuff. So branching out from the just the review and pop culture medium, you can check that out on The Outer Rim, coming very soon to YouTube. You can always check my channels or Smirking Gun for more information.
All right, and Alyssa, what do you have going on and where people can find you?
Yeah. I'm looking forward to that podcast, by the way. It's something really cool. Yeah, so I don't do a lot, but this has been a busy month for me because I just released my Strange New Worlds season 3 overall, or really episode 6 through 10 review, and then I gave my overall rating at the end. So that's out, and then this upcoming Saturday I do my quarterly live chat with wine. I do 4 times a year now, where I open up a bottle of wine and sit there and just chat with people who come into the chat, and we just chat about whatever. And this time I do have a specific topic that I want you all to think about. If you're going to come and join me, I want you to come up with the worst possible episode you could think of for Strange New Worlds season 4, besides the puppets. And I heard Brandon earlier say, "Let's not speak it into existence." We may be speaking some things into existence, but they've already done season 4, so it's not like it's already done. So we're not making it happen by us talking, but like, yeah. But I think it would be fun to just like, let's go ridiculous. Like, think of some ridiculous things besides puppets that they could do that would be really bad, or even things that you think they might actually do and you hope they don't. So that'll be a fun discussion. That'll take up at least part of the time, and then the rest of the time we just end up talking about random things. Like I remember the time we talked about bears. Somehow we got in this big conversation about bears. Like so it's just we talk about whatever. So it's a fun time. Hope you all can join it. It'll be this Saturday. It'll be 3:00 Pacific time, which is different. I usually do 4:00. This is an hour earlier than my normal. So make sure that you regulars, Brandon and all you out there, it's an hour earlier than normal. It'll be 3:00 this Saturday, the 20th, 3:00 my Pacific Coast time. So hope to see you all there.
Cool. And if you're friending me for the first time, my name is Mark. My channel is Enchantment of Eternity. I am covering, it's very stupidly decided to cover every single episode of Star Trek, one episode at a time. I'm currently in season 4 of Deep Space Nine and season 2 of Voyager. So I put out at least 2, sometimes 3 of those a week. Yeah, other than that, I don't really have much going on. I feel like I need to do another solo live stream myself, maybe next month. I don't know, but anyway, so that's what's that's what's going. Oh yeah, also relevant to this video, I'm releasing my review of season 3 of Strange New Worlds overall this coming Thursday, so you can check that out if you want to hear me repeat pretty much everything I said here. But yeah, it's very similar to that. But anyway, yeah, thanks everyone for joining. Of course, thanks to Alyssa and Darrin for joining. F blast as always, and we'll see you all next time.
Oh, real quick, I think I got your Kelvin Strange New Worlds crossover. They're going to cast Carl Urban to play Dr. McCoy in both of them.
Oh god! I mean, I love Carl Urban, but no, like just don't bring in the I heard this rumor that they were gonna erase the Kelvin verse. They were gonna do the next movie and undo it so that universe didn't exist. I'm like, please. And now I'm so worried about Skydance because they seem to like those movies, and I don't want. If they turn it all into the Kelvin verse, I'm out. Like, I'm just not watching Star Trek. But anyway,
even with Carl Urban.
Yeah, even with Carl Urban. Anyway, yes. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.